The moment Victor Morelli inhaled that scent, every instinct he'd honed over 20 years in the underworld screamed danger. His hand froze halfway to his wine glass. Around him, Miami's elite continued their meaningless chatter, oblivious. But Victor knew someone in this restaurant wore a ghost's perfume, a fragrance he'd buried with secrets and blood. His eyes locked on the waitress, young, unaware, carrying a tray with trembling hands. She had no idea she was wearing evidence of a murder his family committed 30 years ago. "Clear the room," he said quietly. His men moved instantly. "Not you," he told the girl. "You stay." Before we begin Elena's story, if you're drawn to tales of dangerous secrets and impossible choices, stay with me until the end. Hit that like button and comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. Now, let's begin. The Oasis was the kind of restaurant where Miami's powerful came to be seen. Crystal chandeliers cast amber light across white tablecloths. Soft jazz played from hidden speakers. Women in designer dresses laughed behind their hands, while men in tailored suits discussed deals worth more than most people earned in a lifetime. Elena Cross moved through this world like a shadow. She'd worked at the Oasis for 3 years, and in that time, she'd perfected the art of invisibility. Keep your head down, don't make eye contact, smile politely when necessary, take the orders, deliver the food, collect your tips, and get out. She wasn't here to make friends or impressions. She was here because her mother's medical bills didn't pay themselves, and the Oasis paid better than anywhere else that would hire a 24-year-old with nothing but a high school diploma and determination. Tonight felt different, though. Elena couldn't explain why. Maybe it was the weight of the small crystal bottle in her apron pocket, her grandmother's perfume, nearly empty now, that she'd worn on impulse. Maybe it was the headache building behind her eyes, or the fact that her mother's doctor had called that afternoon with news Elena didn't want to think about. Or maybe it was the man in the corner booth. She'd noticed him the moment he arrived. Hard not to. He moved with the kind of certainty that parted crowds without him having to ask. Mid-40s, dark hair touched with silver at the temples, wearing a suit that probably cost more than Elena's car. But it wasn't the money that made her notice him. It was something else. Something in the way his security detail positioned themselves around the restaurant, the way the manager himself had shown the man to his table, practically bowing, the way everyone else in the restaurant had suddenly started speaking more quietly. "Table 12 needs water," Marcus, the head waiter, said as he passed Elena in the kitchen doorway. "You're up." Elena's stomach tightened. Table 12, the corner booth. She filled a crystal pitcher with ice water, checked her reflection in the chrome refrigerator door, dark hair pulled back in a neat bun, minimal makeup, white shirt pressed and clean, and walked out into the dining room. The man didn't look up as she approached. He was reading something on his phone, one hand resting on the table. Elena noticed the watch first, understated but clearly expensive. Then the ring on his right hand, gold with a black stone. Then the small scar along his jaw, barely visible unless you were close enough to pour water, which she was. "Good evening," Elena said quietly. "Can I start you with something to drink?" He glanced up, and for half a second his expression was normal, professional. The look of someone about to order scotch or wine. Then he inhaled. Everything changed. The man's entire body went rigid. His eyes, dark, dangerous eyes, locked on Elena with an intensity that made her step back involuntarily. The phone clattered to the table. Around them, the quiet conversations of other diners faded into white noise. "Where did you get that perfume?" His voice was low, controlled, but Elena heard something underneath it, something that made her pulse quicken. What?" "The perfume you're wearing." He stood slowly, and Elena realized how tall he was, how solid. "Where did you get it?" Elena's hand went instinctively to her throat. "It was my grandmother's. Why?" "Your grandmother's name." It wasn't a request, it was a command, delivered with the casual authority of someone who'd never been told no in his life. I should get my manager." "Your grandmother's name," he repeated. "Now." Around them, Elena became aware of movement. The man's security detail had shifted positions subtly. The exits were covered. Other diners were starting to notice that something was happening, their conversations trailing off, heads turning. Elena's throat was dry. Catherine DeLuca. She died when I was... The man's face transformed. Not with emotion exactly, but with recognition, with certainty, with something that looked almost like fear. He pulled out his phone, typed something quickly, and showed her the screen. It was an old photograph, slightly yellowed at the edges. A young woman, maybe 25, wearing a light blue dress and smiling at someone off camera. Beautiful in an effortless way, with dark curls and bright eyes. Elena's grandmother. Decades younger than Elena had ever known her, but unmistakable. "How do you have this?" Elena whispered. The man pocketed his phone. When he spoke again, his voice was different, quieter, more dangerous. "Because the woman in that photograph stole something from my family 30 years ago. Something we've been looking for ever since." His eyes swept over Elena, cataloging, assessing. And apparently she had a granddaughter who doesn't know what kind of legacy she's carrying. He turned to one of his security guards. "Clear the restaurant. Everyone out. Now." "Wait," Elena started. "Not you." The man's hand shot out, gripping Elena's wrist. Not painfully, but firmly enough that she couldn't pull away. "You stay exactly where you are." The next 5 minutes unfolded like a nightmare. The security team moved with military precision. Other diners were politely but firmly escorted to the exits. The manager tried to protest. "Sir, we have reservations. We can't just..." But one look from the man in the suit silenced him. Money changed hands. A lot of money, from what Elena could see. The staff were told to take an early night, paid well for their trouble and their silence. Within minutes, the oasis was empty except for Elena, the man, and his security detail. The front doors locked with a heavy click that echoed through the suddenly silent restaurant. Elena's mind was racing. She should run. She should scream. She should do something other than stand here frozen while this stranger essentially kidnapped her in her place of work. But his hand was still on her wrist, and some deep animal part of her brain was screaming that running would be worse. That this man, whoever he was the kind of predator that chased. "Sit," he said, gesturing to the booth. Elena sat. He slid into the seat across from her, and for a moment they just looked at each other. Up close, Elena could see the details her waitress training had taught her to notice. The expensive cologne, the calloused knuckles despite the tailored suit, the way his eyes never stopped moving, tracking exits and threats. "My name is Victor Morelli," he said finally, "and before tonight is over, you're going to tell me everything you know about Catherine DeLuca, every story she ever told you, every item she left behind, every piece of your family history that you think doesn't matter." Elena's voice came out steadier than she felt. "And if I don't?" Victor leaned back, studying her. "Then you're going to walk out of here with no idea that 3 federal agents are currently sitting in a car outside your apartment building, waiting to ask you questions about criminal conspiracy and money laundering. Questions you don't have answers to." He paused. "Yet." The blood drained from Elena's face. "What?" "Your grandmother didn't just leave you Perfume," Victor said quietly. "She left you a legacy that people have killed for, that people have died protecting." He pulled out his phone again, swiped through several screens, and turned it toward her. Elena saw herself, walking to her car, entering her apartment, leaving for work this morning, time-stamped, dated, professional surveillance photos. "How long have you been watching me?" Her voice was barely a whisper. 3 days. Since we got word that Catherine DeLuca had a granddaughter living in Miami wearing her perfume in public." Victor pocketed the phone. "The federal agents have been watching you for 2 weeks. Elena felt dizzy. This wasn't real. This couldn't be real. Just this morning, her biggest concern had been whether she could pick up an extra shift to cover her mother's new prescription costs. Now she was sitting in an empty restaurant across from a man who looked like he stepped out of a crime thriller, being told she was under federal surveillance. "I don't know anything," she said. "My grandmother died when I was 16. She never talked about her past. She was just my grandmother." She was a lot more than that. Victor signaled to one of his guards, who approached carrying a leather portfolio. Victor opened it, pulled out a stack of documents, and spread them across the table. Elena saw official-looking papers, birth certificates, immigration records, photographs of people she didn't recognize, and one document that made her breath catch. A marriage certificate for Catherine DeLuca and someone named Antonio Morelli, dated 1994. That's impossible, Elena said. My grandmother married my grandfather, James Cross. They were together for 40 years before he died. Before that, Victor tapped the marriage certificate. Antonio Morelli was my father, which means your grandmother was briefly my stepmother, until she disappeared one night with something that didn't belong to her. Elena stared at the document, her mind refusing to process the implications. What did she take? Information, account numbers, evidence of transactions that could have brought down my father's entire organization. Victor's voice was matter-of-fact, like he was discussing a business deal. She vanished, changed her name, started over. My father spent years looking for her, died still looking. But I never saw anything like that, just normal things, photo albums, old jewelry, the perfume. Elena's hands were shaking. She pressed them flat against the table. If she had stolen something important, why would she keep it? Why not destroy it? Insurance, Victor said simply. As long as she had it, my father couldn't touch her without risking everything, mutually assured destruction. He leaned forward, but Catherine's dead now, and whatever she took, whatever she hid, it's still out there, which means you're in danger whether you know anything or not. From you? From everyone. Victor's expression didn't change. The federal agents watching your apartment building think you're going to lead them to evidence. My competitors think you might have access to information about my organization, and some very dangerous people think you're leverage they can use against me. He paused. They're all right in different ways, which means you have exactly two choices. Elena's mouth was dry. What choices? Choice 1. You walk out of here tonight and go back to your normal life. You ignore the surveillance, ignore the danger, hope it all blows over. Maybe it does. Maybe the feds get bored. Maybe my enemies decide you're not worth the trouble. His eyes held hers. Or maybe you end up dead in an alley because you knew too much or too little, and either way you're a loose end. And choice 2? You let me protect you. You tell me everything you know. You let my people secure your apartment, install security, make sure your mother is safe. He said the last part casually, but Elena heard the threat underneath it. He knew about her mother. Of course he did. You step into this world willingly, with my protection, instead of being dragged in as a victim. That's not a choice, Elena said. That's an ultimatum. Yes, Victor agreed. It is, but it's the only one you've got. Elena looked around the empty restaurant, the locked doors, the security guards positioned at every exit, the man across from her who spoke about death and danger like he was ordering dinner. 20 minutes ago, her life had made sense. Now she was sitting across from a crime boss who claimed to be her step-uncle, or something equally insane, being told that her sweet, quiet grandmother had been some kind of criminal informant, and that Elena herself was now a target. I need to think. You don't have time to think. Victor's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and something in his expression shifted. The agents outside your building just called for backup. They're planning to bring you in for questioning tomorrow morning. Questioning about what? I haven't done anything. Doesn't matter. They'll ask you about your grandmother's finances, your inheritance, whether you've had contact with anyone from my organization. His eyes locked on hers. And when you can't answer their questions, they'll decide you're either hiding something or genuinely ignorant. Either way, they'll make your life hell until they get what they want. Elena's chest was tight. And what do you want? Victor was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice carried something she hadn't heard before. Not quite sympathy, but something in that neighborhood. I want what my father wanted, the information Catherine took. But more than that, he paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. I want to know why she ran, why she risked everything to disappear. My father was a lot of things, but he wasn't the monster everyone thinks. There's a piece of this story I don't have, and I think you're the key to finding it. I don't know anything, Elena repeated, but even as she said it, memories were stirring, little things that hadn't seemed important, the way her grandmother always checked the locks twice before bed, how she'd taught Elena to memorize addresses and phone numbers instead of writing them down, the strange sadness in her eyes whenever someone mentioned Italy. Maybe you know more than you realize, Victor said. He stood, buttoning his suit jacket. I'm going to step outside for 5 minutes. Give you time to think without me staring at you. When I come back, you're going to make a choice. He nodded to one of his guards. Get her some water. Real water, not that pitcher she was carrying. The guard moved immediately, disappearing into the kitchen. Victor looked down at Elena. 5 minutes. Then we figure out how to keep you alive. He walked away, his footsteps echoing on the polished floor. The front door opened and closed. Through the window, Elena could see him standing outside, phone to his ear, bathed in the amber glow of streetlights. She was alone, or as alone as someone could be with armed security guards watching from the corners. Elena's mind was chaos. She should call the police, but what would she say? A crime boss told me my dead grandmother was a thief? She should run, but where? If federal agents were already watching her apartment, if Victor's people could track her movements, where could she possibly go? And underneath all the fear and confusion, one thought kept surfacing, unbidden and unwelcome. Victor Morelli had her grandmother's photograph, had documents Elena had never seen, knew things about Catherine DeLuca that Elena had never even questioned. What else didn't she know about her own family? The guard returned with a glass of water. Elena took it with shaking hands, grateful for something to do, some normal action in this surreal situation. He's telling you the truth, you know. The guard's voice was gruff, but not unkind. About the danger. Elena looked up sharply. You work for him. For 15 years, and I've seen what happens to people who get caught in the middle of this world without protection. He jerked his chin toward the window, toward Victor. He's offering you something rare. Most people don't get a choice. He's offering me captivity. He's offering you survival. The guard's expression was grim. There's a difference. Before Elena could respond, the door opened again. Victor stepped back inside, his phone now silent in his pocket. He crossed the restaurant and slid back into the booth across from her. Decision time, he said quietly. Elena's hands were wrapped around the water glass so tightly her knuckles had gone white. She thought about her mother, alone in that hospital bed, already so fragile. She thought about her tiny apartment, her normal life, her plans to maybe take some online classes, maybe save enough to think about the future. All of that felt impossibly far away now. If I agree to this, Elena said slowly, what does protection actually mean? Victor's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes shifted. Approval, maybe, or relief. It means you move out of your apartment tonight. I have a property, secure, private. You'll stay there until we sort out what Catherine left behind and what the feds actually know. He held up a hand before Elena could protest. Your mother will be moved to a private facility. Better care, better security. My people will handle the costs. I can't pay you back. I don't want money. Victor's voice was firm. What I want is answers and cooperation. You tell me everything you remember about your grandmother. You let me search her belongings. You trust me to handle the federal investigation. He paused. And you accept that for the foreseeable future, your life belongs to me. The words hung in the air between them. That's not protection, Elena whispered. That's ownership. Call it what you want. Victor's eyes never left hers. But it's the only way you survive this. The only way your mother survives this. He leaned forward slightly. I'm not a good man, Elena. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. But I keep my promises. And I'm promising you that if you agree to this, you'll be safe. Your mother will be safe. And maybe, just maybe, we'll both get the answers we're looking for. Elena's vision blurred. She blinked hard, refusing to cry in front of this stranger, this criminal, this man who'd just systematically dismantled her entire life in under an hour. But what choice did she have? Really? If she walked away, the federal agents would arrest her tomorrow. Even if they didn't have evidence, they'd make her life miserable trying to find some. And if Victor was telling the truth about competitors and enemies, her apartment wasn't safe anyway. Her mother wasn't safe. At least this way she had someone powerful on her side, even if that someone terrified her. Okay, she heard herself say. Okay, I'll do it. Victor's expression didn't change, but he nodded once. Smart girl. He pulled out his phone, sent a quick text, and within seconds, the restaurant was full of activity. More security guards appeared from somewhere. Two women in professional clothing entered through the back, one carrying what looked like a medical bag. "Elena, this is Dr. Sarah Chen and her assistant," Victor said, standing. "They're going to take you to see your mother, explain the transfer to the new facility, make sure she's comfortable with the move." "Right now?" Elena stood on shaky legs. "It's almost 10 o'clock. "Right now." Victor's tone brooked no argument. "We don't wait for convenient timing. We move when we need to move. And we need to move now, before the feds decide to accelerate their timeline." Dr. Chen stepped forward, her smile professional but warm. "I promise, Ms. Cross, your mother will be well cared for. The facility we're taking her to specializes in her condition. She'll have round-the-clock nursing care, physical therapy, whatever she needs." Elena wanted to argue, wanted to demand more time, more answers, more control over what was happening to her life. But she looked at Victor's face and knew. This was happening whether she wanted it or not. The only question was whether she fought it every step of the way or accepted that, for now at least, she'd lost the power to make her own choices. "Can I at least get my things from my apartment?" "Already being handled," Victor said. He gestured to one of the guards. "Marcus will drive you to the hospital. Stay with Dr. Chen. Do exactly what she tells you. I'll meet you at the new location once your mother is settled." "Where's the new location?" "Coral Gables. Gated community. Very secure." Victor was already moving toward the door, his attention shifting to his phone, to the next crisis or decision that needed handling. "Marcus, keep her safe. Chen, call me when the transfer is complete. Everyone else, let's move." And just like that, Elena was being guided out of the restaurant, into a black SUV with tinted windows, her entire world condensing to this moment, this choice, this stranger's promise of protection that felt more like a prison sentence. As the SUV pulled away from the oasis, Elena looked back through the rear window. Victor stood on the sidewalk, phone to his ear, surrounded by his security detail. Even from a distance, even in the dim streetlight, he looked exactly like what he was. Someone who commanded armies, who bent the world to his will, who didn't accept the word no. And now Elena belonged to him. The thought should have terrified her. It did terrify her. But underneath the fear, buried deep where she barely wanted to acknowledge it, was something else. Something that whispered, maybe being claimed by someone powerful isn't the worst thing that could happen. Maybe, in a world full of threats and dangers Elena couldn't see coming, having Victor Morelli's protection was the only smart choice, even if that protection came with a price she didn't know how to pay. The hospital was quiet at this hour. Elena followed Dr. Chen through sterile hallways, past nurses' stations where staff looked up curiously at their small procession. Marcus walked behind them, silent and watchful, his hand never far from his jacket. Elena's mother was in room 304, third floor, east wing. The same room she'd been in for 3 weeks now, ever since the stroke that had put her there. Dr. Chen paused outside the door. "I should go in first, explain the situation. Would you like me to tell her you're being protected?" "Tell her I got a better job," Elena said quickly. Tell her I'm finally getting ahead and I want her to have the best care available. Don't mention—" She gestured vaguely at Marcus. "Any of this." Dr. Chen nodded with understanding. "Of course!" She pushed open the door and Elena heard her mother's voice, weak but alert. "It's very late for rounds." "Mrs. Cross, I'm Dr. Chen. I have some wonderful news about your treatment options." Elena leaned against the hallway wall, suddenly exhausted. It was barely 11 o'clock. 3 hours ago, she'd been worrying about table assignments and tip percentages. Now she was hiding in a hospital hallway while a doctor who worked for a crime boss convinced her mother to accept charity that wasn't charity at all. "Your mother seems strong." Marcus had positioned himself a few feet away, watching both ends of the corridor. "The new facility will be good for her." "Is it a real facility?" Elena asked. "Or some front for whatever Victor actually does?" "It's real. One of the best in South Florida. Mr. Morelli has business relationships with the board." Marcus's expression was carefully neutral. "But the care is legitimate. I've seen other families use it. Your mother will be safe there." "Safe from what exactly?" Elena turned to face him. What aren't you telling me? What kind of danger am I actually in? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, 3 years ago, there was a man, Marco Ruiz. He worked in Mr. Morelli's accounting department. Quiet guy, family man, wouldn't hurt anyone. What happened to him? Someone thought he knew where certain records were kept, records that could damage some powerful people. Marcus's jaw tightened. They were wrong. Marco didn't know anything, but they didn't believe him. By the time we found him, it was too late. Elena's stomach turned. They killed him. They made an example of him. Marcus met her eyes. That's what happens when you're caught in the middle without protection, when powerful people think you're a liability or a resource. He paused. You wearing that perfume tonight? Walking around Miami like you're nobody? That made you visible. And visibility in this world gets people killed. The door opened. Dr. Chen stepped out, smiling professionally. Your mother's very excited about the transfer. She thinks you've won some kind of hospital lottery. There was warmth in her voice, but also a warning. Keep the story simple. Keep her safe through ignorance. She'd like to see you before we make the move. Elena pushed off the wall, straightening her shoulders. Her mother couldn't know, couldn't suspect, had to believe that Elena's life was finally improving instead of falling apart. She walked into the room wearing a smile that felt like a mask. Her mother looked small in the hospital bed, hooked up to monitors that beeped softly, her left hand still weak from the stroke. But her eyes were bright, and when she saw Elena, her face lit up. Baby girl, Dr. Chen says they're moving me somewhere nicer. Says you arranged it? Elena crossed to the bed, took her mother's good hand. Your daughter's moving up in the world, Mama. Got some connections. Got you into a better program. You work too hard. Her mother's voice was soft but firm. Always working, always worrying. You need to think about yourself sometimes. I'm thinking about myself. Elena squeezed her hand gently. I'm thinking that I sleep better knowing you're getting the best care available. Her mother studied her face the way only mothers can. Something's wrong. You look scared. Just tired. It's been a long day. You're a terrible liar, Elena Marie Cross. But her mother smiled. Always have been. Even when you were little, trying to tell me you didn't eat the cookies, chocolate all over your face. Despite everything, Elena laughed. I'm fine, Mama. I promise. Just a lot of changes happening fast. Changes can be good. Her mother's thumb traced circles on Elena's hand. Your grandmother always said that. Catherine, I'd tell her, I'm scared of what's coming. And she'd say, Linda, change is just life refusing to let you get comfortable. A pause. She was right about that. Elena's chest tightened. Mama, what do you know about grandmother's life? Before she married Grandpa James? Her mother's expression shifted slightly. Why do you ask? Just, I was wearing her perfume tonight. Got me thinking about her. About all the things we never talked about. Catherine didn't like to talk about the past. Her mother's voice was careful now. She always said it was better to look forward, that the past was just ghosts trying to hold you back. But she must have told you something, where she came from, what her life was like before. She came from Italy, her mother said. Moved to the States when she was young, met your grandfather, fell in love, built a life. That's all that mattered to her. The rest was just noise. She squeezed Elena's hand. Why all these questions, baby? What's really going on? Elena wanted to tell her, wanted to explain everything, Victor, the surveillance, the danger, the impossible choices. But looking at her mother's face, still healing, still fragile, she couldn't do it. Nothing's going on. Just missing her, I guess. Her mother didn't look convinced, but Dr. Chen chose that moment to step back into the room. Mrs. Cross, we should start the transfer process. Get you settled in your new room before it gets too late. The next 20 minutes were organized chaos. Nurses disconnecting monitors, gathering paperwork, preparing transport. Marcus coordinated with hospital security, or appeared to. Elena suspected he was actually making sure no one interfered with the move. Her mother was loaded onto a gurney, still hooked to a portable monitor. Dr. Chen's assistant gathered the few personal items in the room, a framed photograph, some flowers, the paperback mystery novel her mother had been slowly working through. I'll ride with her, Elena said. Actually, Dr. Chen's voice was gentle but firm. The ambulance is quite small. Why don't you follow in the car with Marcus? You'll be there when we arrive, I promise. It wasn't a suggestion. Elena watched her mother being wheeled away and felt another piece of her control slip away. She couldn't even ride in the same vehicle with her own mother. Couldn't make that simple choice. Come on, Marcus said quietly. The sooner we get there, the sooner you can see her settled. They took the elevator down in silence. The hospital's night staff paid them no attention. Just another family dealing with another transfer. Nothing unusual. But Elena felt the weight of what was happening. Every step taking her deeper into Victor's world. Every choice that wasn't really a choice. The SUV was waiting outside, engine running. Elena slid into the back seat and Marcus took the front passenger position next to the driver. As they pulled away from the hospital, following the ambulance's taillights through empty Miami streets, Elena caught sight of another car pulling out several vehicles behind them. Is someone following us? She asked. Marcus glanced at the side mirror. Yes. Federal agents? Ours, counter-surveillance, making sure no one else is following us. Elena closed her eyes. Even the simple act of driving across the city required security measures, counter-surveillance, protection details. This was her life now, at least for the foreseeable future. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Your apartment has been secured, personal items being packed, will be delivered to new location. So Victor had people in her apartment right now, going through her things, packing up her life without her permission. She should be angry, should be furious, but mostly she just felt numb. The Coral Gables facility was exactly what Dr. Chen had promised. Impressive even from the outside. Modern architecture, beautifully landscaped grounds, security gates that rolled open smoothly as they approached. The ambulance was already there, parked under a well-lit portico. Marcus held the SUV door open for her. Dr. Chen will get your mother settled. You'll have a few minutes with her, then we move to your new residence. Which is where? A few streets over. Mr. Morelli owns several properties in this area. Of course he did. Inside, the facility smelled like expensive cleaning products and fresh flowers, nothing like the antiseptic staleness of the hospital. Staff moved with quiet efficiency, and Elena noticed that while they were professional with her mother, they treated Dr. Chen with particular deference. They definitely knew who was paying the bills. Her mother's new room was on the second floor, facing a garden courtyard. Private, spacious, with actual artwork on the walls and furniture that looked like it belonged in a hotel rather than a medical facility. Oh my, her mother breathed as they wheeled her in. Elena, this is too much. Nothing's too much for you, Mama. Elena helped the nurses transfer her mother from the gurney to the bed, adjusting pillows, making sure she was comfortable. You like it? Like it? It's beautiful. Her mother's eyes were wet. I don't know what you did to arrange this, but thank you, baby. Thank you. Elena kissed her forehead. Get some rest. I'll come visit tomorrow. You're not staying? I have some things to handle, work stuff, but I'll be back first thing in the morning, okay? Her mother caught her hand. Elena, whatever's happening, whatever changes you're making, just promise me you'll be careful. I promise, Mama. It wasn't a lie, Elena told herself as she left the room. She was being careful. She'd accepted protection, agreed to Victor's terms, made the smart choice, even if it felt like she was drowning. Marcus was waiting in the hallway. Ready? Do I have a choice? No. At least he was honest about it. The drive to Elena's new residence took less than 5 minutes. They wound through quiet streets lined with gated properties, each one more impressive than the last. Finally, they turned into a driveway that led to a modern 2-story home, all clean lines and large windows. This is my apartment? Elena asked incredulously. Your house, Marcus corrected. For now, Mr. Morelli will arrive soon to discuss next steps. The interior was exactly what Elena expected. Expensive, minimalist, and utterly impersonal. Hardwood floors, designer furniture, a kitchen that had probably never been used. Her few boxes of belongings looked pathetic stacked in the living room. There's food in the refrigerator, Marcus said. Security monitors in the study upstairs. If you need anything, there's a phone in the kitchen with direct numbers. He paused at the door. Mr. Morelli should be here within the hour. I'll be outside if you need me before then. And then Elena was alone. She walked through the house in a daze, opening doors to find a guest bedroom, a master suite, a bathroom with a tub big enough to swim in. Everything was perfect. Everything was ready. Everything was a cage. Elena found herself back in the living room, staring at her boxes. Her whole life reduced to 6 cardboard containers, clothes, books, the few sentimental items she'd kept from her grandmother, the crystal bottle of perfume that had started all of this. She picked it up, turning it in her hands. The liquid inside caught the light, amber and gold, barely a tablespoon left. The label had faded years ago, but Elena remembered her grandmother letting her smell it when she was little. "This is from a different life," Catherine had said. "A life I left behind." "What life, grandmother?" Elena thought. "What did you leave behind? And why didn't you tell us?" She was still holding the bottle when she heard the front door open. Elena spun around, her heart racing, but she knew who it would be even before he appeared. Victor Morelli walked into the living room like he owned it, which, Elena supposed, he did. He'd changed clothes, still in a suit, but more casual now, or as casual as someone like him got. He looked tired, Elena realized. The slight tightness around his eyes, the way he rolled his shoulders as he walked in. "Your mother settled?" he asked. "Yes, thank you for—" Elena stopped herself. She wouldn't thank him, not when he'd orchestrated everything to give her no choice. "She's settled." Victor's mouth twitched, almost a smile. "You don't have to thank me. This is business." "My mother's health is business?" "Everything is business." He crossed to the bar cart in the corner, poured himself 2 fingers of scotch. "But business doesn't mean I don't care about the outcome. Your mother getting proper care serves my interests. It also serves yours. That's how good deals work." He took a sip, studying Elena over the rim of the glass. "You did well tonight. No hysterics, no stupid decisions. You made the smart choice. The only choice. That too." Victor set down the glass. "Tomorrow, we start going through your grandmother's things. Everything she left you. I need to see it all. Jewelry, papers, photographs, anything that might have been hers." He pulled out his phone, scrolled through something. "I'm also having my tech people check her old addresses, financial records, anywhere she might have hidden documents." "What exactly are you looking for?" Elena asked. "You keep saying she stole information, but what kind of information is worth all this?" Victor was quiet for a long moment. Then he walked to the windows, looked out at the dark garden beyond. "In 1994, my father's organization was one of the most powerful on the East Coast. We had connections in banking, real estate, shipping, legitimate businesses alongside less legitimate operations." His voice was matter-of-fact, like he was discussing weather. "But that kind of power makes enemies, and my father had plenty." He turned back to face Elena. "Catherine worked for us, started as a bookkeeper, moved up to financial management. She was smart, discreet, trustworthy. My father married her not just because he cared about her, but because he trusted her with his empire's secrets." Victor's expression darkened. "Then she disappeared. Took account numbers, transaction records, documentation of deals that could have destroyed us. My father spent 15 years looking for her, terrified she'd sell that information to the FBI or to his enemies." "But she never did," Elena said softly. "No, she never did." Victor picked up his drink again. "Which is the part I've never understood. If she wanted to destroy my father, she had the means. If she wanted money, she could have sold the information for millions. Instead, she just vanished. Lived a quiet life. Married someone else. Raised a daughter. Died in her sleep without ever using the ammunition she'd stolen." "Maybe she just wanted out," Elena said. "Maybe she wanted a normal life more than she wanted revenge or money." Victor's eyes met hers. "Maybe. But people don't usually steal insurance they never plan to use, which means either she was planning to use it and died before she could, or—" He trailed off. "Or what? Or she hid it somewhere safe, somewhere that could still be found by someone who knew what to look for." Victor drained his scotch. "And if it's still out there, Elena, we need to find it before someone else does. Because my enemies from 30 years ago, some of them are still around, still watching, and if they think Catherine's granddaughter might lead them to information they can use—" He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Elena's legs felt weak. She sat down on the couch, suddenly aware of how exhausted she was. I really don't know anything. I wish I did, but I don't. Then we'll figure it out together. Victor checked his watch. It's late. You should get some rest. We start tomorrow, first thing. He headed for the door, then paused, looking back. Elena, what I said earlier about your life belonging to me, I meant it. But I'm not a tyrant. You'll have freedom within reasonable boundaries. You can see your mother whenever you want. You can go out, live your life, as long as security goes with you. His expression was serious. But you can't run, can't contact the authorities, can't make unilateral decisions about your safety. Those days are over. Do you understand? Elena understood perfectly. She was a bird in a gilded cage. The bars were invisible, but they were there. I understand, she whispered. Victor nodded once and left. Elena sat alone in this beautiful empty house, listening to the sound of the door closing, the car starting outside, the silence settling in around her like a shroud. Somewhere in this city, federal agents were probably still watching her old apartment, wondering where she'd gone. Somewhere, Victor's enemies were plotting their next move. Somewhere, the information her grandmother had hidden was waiting to be found. And Elena was caught in the middle of all of it, her entire life transformed in a single evening by a perfume she'd worn on impulse. She picked up the crystal bottle again, held it to the light. What did you do, grandmother? She whispered to the empty room. What secrets did you keep, and why did you leave them for me to find? The perfume had no answers, just the faint scent of roses and something darker underneath, something that smelled like danger and old money and choices that couldn't be undone. Elena set the bottle carefully on the coffee table and went upstairs to find the bedroom that would be hers for however long this nightmare lasted. Tomorrow, she would start searching through her grandmother's past. Tonight, she would try to sleep in a stranger's house, under a stranger's protection, while her whole world rearranged itself around her. The bed was comfortable, the sheets were expensive, the room was secure. But Elena lay awake for hours anyway, staring at the ceiling, wondering if she'd made the right choice or if she'd just sold her freedom for the illusion of safety. Either way, it was too late to turn back now. Outside her window, she could hear the soft footsteps of security guards making their rounds, protecting her, watching her, making sure she stayed exactly where Victor wanted her. Elena finally fell asleep just before dawn and dreamed of her grandmother running through dark streets, clutching a small leather case, looking over her shoulder for pursuers who never stopped chasing. Morning came too soon, filtering through curtains Elena didn't remember closing. For a confused moment, she thought she was late for her shift at the Oasis. Then memory crashed back. The restaurant, Victor, the perfume, her mother's transfer, this house that wasn't hers. She sat up slowly, taking in the unfamiliar room. Someone had unpacked her clothes while she slept. Her few dresses hung in the walk-in closet, her toiletries arranged neatly in the bathroom. The invasion of privacy should have bothered her more than it did, but Elena was too tired to muster the energy for outrage. Her phone showed 8 missed calls from her manager at the Oasis and 3 texts asking where she was. Elena stared at the messages, trying to formulate a response that made sense. Finally, she typed, "Family emergency. Won't be able to work anymore. Sorry for no notice." It felt surreal, quitting via text a job she'd held for 3 years. But what else could she do? Show up for her shift with Victor's security detail in tow? Before she could second-guess the decision, her phone rang. An unknown number. "Hello?" "Good morning." Victor's voice was crisp, alert. He sounded like someone who'd been awake for hours. "There's breakfast downstairs. Eat something, then we have work to do." "I need to see my mother first. Already arranged. We'll stop by the facility on our way. Be ready in 30 minutes. He hung up before Elena could respond. She showered quickly, dressed in jeans and a simple sweater, and made her way downstairs. The kitchen table was set with fresh coffee, fruit, pastries that looked like they'd come from an expensive bakery. Marcus sat in the living room reading something on his tablet and nodded when Elena appeared. "Mr. Morelli will be here in 20 minutes, he said. Elena poured herself coffee and forced down half a croissant, her stomach too knotted for real appetite. Through the kitchen window, she could see the manicured garden, the high fence surrounding the property, The subtle security cameras positioned at every angle. A prison, she thought again. A beautiful prison. Exactly 20 minutes later, she heard a car pull up. Victor entered through the front door like he owned the place, which he did, wearing another impeccable suit, this one charcoal gray. He glanced at Elena's half-eaten breakfast and said nothing, just gestured toward the door. "Let's go." The SUV was waiting outside, Marcus already behind the wheel. Elena slid into the back seat and Victor settled beside her, immediately pulling out his phone and scrolling through messages. For several minutes, they drove in silence through Coral Gables' quiet streets. "How much did my grandmother know about your father's business?" Elena asked finally. Victor didn't look up from his phone. "Everything. She managed the books, tracked the money, knew every deal we made. That's what made her so valuable, and so dangerous when she left. But she must have had a reason. You don't just abandon that kind of life on a whim." "No," Victor agreed. He pocketed his phone and turned to face her. "You don't. Which is one of the things I need you to help me understand. Did your grandmother ever mention anyone from her past? Old friends? Old enemies? Anyone who might have scared her?" Elena thought back through childhood memories, trying to find something useful. She was always private. Never talked about Italy, never mentioned family there. When I asked once why we didn't have Italian relatives, she said some families were better left in the past. "That's not an answer." "It's all I have." Elena met his eyes. "I'm sorry I'm not more useful to you." "You're more useful than you realize." Victor's gaze was steady, assessing. "You look like her. Same bone structure, same expressions, same stubborn set to your jaw when you're trying not to show fear." The observation caught Elena off guard. "You knew her well?" "For about 8 months, then she was gone." Something flickered across Victor's face. Not quite sadness, but something in that neighborhood. "My father was different when she was around. Lighter, less paranoid. She had a way of making him laugh, which wasn't easy." He paused. "When she disappeared, he became someone else, harder, more ruthless. Spent the rest of his life looking over his shoulder, waiting for the other shoe to drop." "Maybe she did him a favor," Elena said quietly. "Getting out before things got worse." "Maybe." Victor's expression was unreadable. "Or maybe she broke something in him that never healed." They pulled up to the medical facility and Elena pushed the conversation aside. Her mother was sitting up in bed when they entered, looking better than she had in weeks. The difference was startling, better color in her face, more alertness in her eyes. "Elena!" Her mother's smile was bright. "And who is this?" Victor had stayed in the hallway, giving them privacy, but apparently her mother had spotted him through the doorway. "A friend," Elena said carefully. "He's helping me with some work things." "Handsome friend." Her mother's eyes twinkled. "Is that why you're suddenly so well connected?" "Mama, I'm teasing, baby, but seriously, this place is incredible. The physical therapist came this morning, and she says we can start working on getting my strength back. Real progress, Elena. Real hope." Elena squeezed her mother's hand, guilt twisting in her stomach. This hope was bought with Victor's money, his influence, his control over Elena's life. But seeing her mother's face, seeing actual optimism instead of resigned suffering, made it harder to regret the choice. They talked for 20 minutes about physical therapy, meal plans, the beautiful garden courtyard. Her mother never asked about the sudden upgrade in care, never questioned how Elena had arranged it all. Whether that was trust or willful ignorance, Elena couldn't tell. As she left, her mother called out, "Don't work too hard, baby, and bring your handsome friend by sometime. I'd like to meet someone who inspires such nice changes." Victor was waiting outside the room, and Elena was certain he'd heard every word. His expression gave nothing away. "Your mother seems well cared for," he said as they walked back to the SUV. "Thank you for that. Whatever else happens, thank you for that." Victor just nodded. The drive across Miami took 40 minutes, ending at a storage facility in an industrial area Elena had never visited. Victor led her past the main office to a climate-controlled unit in the back, protected by security cameras and a keypad lock. Inside, under fluorescent lights, sat a collection of boxes and furniture that made Elena's chest tighten, her grandmother's things. This is everything from your apartment that belonged to Catherine, Victor said, gesturing to the stacked containers. And everything we recovered from the storage unit she kept under her married name. Your mother didn't know about that unit, did she? Elena shook her head, staring at the boxes. How did you find it? Property records, financial traces, old rental agreements. When you have resources, information isn't hard to find. Victor pulled on a pair of latex gloves and handed Elena a pair. We go through everything, papers first, then personal items. If you see anything unusual, documents, photographs, anything that seems out of place for a quiet grandmother's life, you tell me immediately. They worked in silence for the first hour. Box after box of ordinary things. Old tax returns, birthday cards Elena had made as a child, recipe clippings, romance novels with cracked spines. Nothing that screamed criminal conspiracy or hidden information. But then Elena opened a small wooden box and froze. Inside were photographs. Not family snapshots, but professional surveillance photos. People she didn't recognize standing outside restaurants, getting into cars, shaking hands in parking lots. Each photo had a date stamped on the back, all from 1994. Victor. He was beside her instantly, taking the box with careful hands. His face went very still as he examined the photographs. These are my father's associates, he said quietly. This one, Salvatore Romano, he was my father's underboss. This is Marcus Delgado, handled our shipping operations. This one, he paused on a photo of a distinguished older man in an expensive suit. Giuseppe Ricci, my father's closest friend, also the man who tried to kill him 3 months after Catherine disappeared. Elena's breath caught. Your father's friend tried to kill him? Turned out Giuseppe was feeding information to the FBI, setting up my father for a major RICO case. Victor's voice was flat, emotionless. My father survived the assassination attempt, and Giuseppe disappeared before we could retaliate. No one ever found him. He flipped through more photos, his expression growing darker with each one. Catherine was documenting them, all of them, their meetings, their movements, their associates. Victor looked at Elena. She was building a case file. But for who? The FBI? A rival family? Maybe for herself, Elena suggested. Maybe she was trying to figure out who she could trust. Or who was going to get her killed. Victor set the box down carefully. Keep looking. If she was documenting my father's organization, there has to be more. They found it 2 boxes later. A leather portfolio, wrapped in plastic, hidden beneath layers of old sweaters. Inside were documents, financial records, account numbers, transaction logs. Years of money movement traced through shell companies and offshore accounts. Everything someone would need to understand exactly how the Morelli organization laundered money. Victor went very quiet as he paged through the documents. This is worse than I thought, he said finally. This isn't just information about my father's business. This is a complete map of our entire financial network. Banks, lawyers, accountants, everyone who helped us move money. He looked up at Elena. If the FBI had gotten their hands on this in 1994, it wouldn't have just destroyed my father. It would have taken down half the legitimate businessmen in Miami. Why didn't she give it to them? That's the question, isn't it? Victor's fingers tapped against the portfolio. Catherine had everything she needed to destroy us, but instead of using it, she just disappeared, started over, lived quietly. His eyes met Elena's. What would make someone walk away from that kind of power? Elena thought about her grandmother, the quiet woman who'd made cookies and told bedtime stories and never, ever talked about her past. Fear, Elena said. Maybe she was more afraid of what would happen if she used it than what would happen if she just disappeared. Victor was silent for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call. James, I need you at the West Side facility. Bring the encryption specialists. A pause. Everything. The whole archive. He hung up and turned to Elena. We're going to photograph every page of these documents, create a digital record. Then we're going to figure out where Catherine got this information and who else might know it exists. What happens to the originals? They stay with me, locked away somewhere safer than this. Victor's expression was grim. Because if my enemies find out we recovered Catherine's files, they're going to come looking, and they won't be as polite as the FBI. Over the next 3 hours, a team of Victor's people arrived and methodically photographed every document in the portfolio. Elena watched them work with professional efficiency, setting up lights, using high-resolution cameras, creating a digital archive of her grandmother's secrets. Victor stepped away to take a phone call, and Elena found herself alone with the photographs again. She picked up the one of Giuseppe Ricci, her grandmother's photo of the man who'd tried to kill Victor's father. Had Catherine known about the betrayal? Was that why she ran? Elena. Victor had returned, his expression troubled. We have a problem. Her stomach dropped. What kind of problem? The federal agents watching you? They just got a warrant to search your old apartment. He showed her his phone, displaying a message from one of his sources. They're executing it right now, looking for evidence of your involvement in money laundering. But I'm not involved in anything. Doesn't matter. They think you are, or they're hoping to pressure you into talking. Victor's jaw tightened, which means our timeline just accelerated. We need to find out what else Catherine left behind, and we need to do it quickly, before the feds decide to bring you in for questioning. Can they do that? Just arrest me without evidence? They can bring you in for questioning anytime they want. And once you're in an interrogation room, every answer you give, or don't give, becomes evidence. He gestured to the boxes around them. This is why you need my protection. This is why you can't handle this alone. Elena wanted to argue, but she knew he was right. If federal agents showed up at her door, she had no idea how to navigate that situation. What to say, what not to say, what rights she actually had. What do we do? We keep looking, and we find a lawyer. Victor made another call. Sarah, I need you to take on a new client. Elena Cross. Expect contact from federal agents within 48 hours. A pause. Yes, that Catherine DeLuca, her granddaughter. Another pause. Good. Bill me directly. He hung up and turned to Elena. Sarah Mitchell, best defense attorney in South Florida. If the feds try to question you, you tell them you want your lawyer present. Then you say nothing else. Not a word. Understand? I understand. Good. Victor checked his watch. It's almost 6. We've been here all day. Let's break for dinner. Regroup tomorrow. But as they walked toward the SUV, Victor's phone rang again. His expression changed as he listened. When? A pause. How bad? Another pause. Keep her there. I'm on my way. He hung up and turned to Marcus. Get us to Mercy General, now. What happened? Elena asked as the SUV peeled out of the parking lot. Victor's face was carved from stone. One of my people was just brought into the ER. Beaten badly. Before he lost consciousness, he said someone asked him questions about Catherine DeLuca. The temperature in the car seemed to drop 10 degrees. Someone's looking for the same information we are, Victor said quietly, and they're willing to hurt people to find it. Elena's hands were shaking. Who? Could be the FBI using off-book methods. Could be one of my father's old enemies thinking there's something to gain. Could be someone I haven't even considered yet. His eyes met hers. But whoever it is, they know you exist, which means the danger just became very real. They arrived at the hospital in record time. Victor strode through the emergency room entrance with the kind of authority that made staff step aside without question. Marcus stayed close to Elena, one hand hovering near his jacket. The injured man was in a curtained-off area, surrounded by doctors and machines that beeped urgently. Elena glimpsed his face, young, maybe 30, so swollen and bruised he was barely recognizable as human. Victor spoke quietly with one of the doctors, then turned to a man in a suit who'd been waiting nearby. Tell me, Victor said. Found him in an alley off Brickell. Multiple contusions, broken ribs, internal bleeding. The suited man's voice was tight with controlled anger. Whoever did this wanted information, not death. They left him alive deliberately. What did he tell them? Don't know. He was barely conscious when we found him. Kept repeating a name, Catherine, and something about the girl. Victor's expression didn't change, but Elena saw his hands curl into fists. Double security on Elena. Triple it. No one gets close to her without my explicit approval. He turned to Marcus. Take her home. Stay with her. I'll handle this. Victor, Elena started. Not now. His voice cut through her protest. This isn't a discussion. Someone just sent me a message by beating one of my people half to death. I need to respond to that message, and I need you somewhere safe while I do. Marcus touched Elena's arm gently. Come on. Elena let herself be guided out of the hospital, her mind reeling. This morning she'd been looking through old photographs and documents. Now someone was in the ICU because they'd asked questions about her grandmother. The drive back to the house was silent. Elena stared out the window at Miami's nighttime lights, trying to process everything. Her quiet life had been shattered so completely she could barely remember what normal felt like. When they arrived, Marcus did a full sweep of the house before letting Elena inside. I'll be right outside, he said. Don't open the door for anyone, not even Mr. Morelli unless I'm with him. Clear? Clear, Elena whispered. She was alone again in the beautiful house that felt more like a cage every hour. Elena wandered into the kitchen, poured herself a glass of water with shaking hands, and tried to think. Someone was hunting for her grandmother's secrets. Someone violent enough to torture Victor's people for information. And Elena was caught in the crossfire of a war that had started before she was born. Her phone rang. Victor. Are you safe? Yes. Marcus checked everything. Good. She heard voices in the background, urgent and angry. I'm going to be dealing with this situation for a while. There's food in the refrigerator. Try to eat something. Try to sleep. Victor, who do you think did this? Silence on the other end. Then, I have suspicions, but I need to be sure before I act. In the meantime, you stay exactly where you are. Don't go anywhere without Marcus or my explicit permission. I'm not a child. No, you're a target, and until I neutralize the threat, you follow my rules exactly. No exceptions. He hung up. Elena stood in the kitchen, anger and fear warring inside her. She hated being told what to do, hated being protected like she was helpless. But she'd seen that man in the hospital bed, seen what happened to people who got caught in Victor's world without adequate protection. She forced herself to eat leftover pasta from the refrigerator, then went upstairs to the bedroom. Through the window, she could see Marcus pacing in the garden, phone to his ear, alert and watchful. Elena pulled out her laptop and opened it, intending to distract herself with something, anything, normal. But instead, she found herself typing her grandmother's name into a search engine. Catherine DeLuca brought up nothing useful, just genealogy records, a few old phone directories. But Catherine Morelli, her grandmother's married name during those 8 months with Victor's father, that yielded results. A society page photograph from a Miami charity event in 1994. Catherine on the arm of a distinguished older man, Antonio Morelli, the caption read. They looked happy. Catherine was radiant in a silver evening gown, her smile genuine and warm. Elena stared at the photograph, trying to reconcile this glamorous woman with the quiet grandmother who'd raised her. They seemed like different people entirely. She kept searching, falling down a rabbit hole of old newspaper archives and social registries. Antonio Morelli had been powerful, connected, dangerous. But in the photographs Elena found, he looked almost normal. A businessman who happened to have ties to organized crime. A man who attended charity galas and smiled for cameras. Then she found an article from late 1994. Small, buried in the metro section. Local businessman survives assassination attempt. Antonio Morelli, prominent Miami entrepreneur, was injured in what police are calling an attempted robbery outside his Coral Gables residence. Morelli sustained minor injuries and is expected to make a full recovery. Police have no suspects at this time. The date was 3 months after her grandmother had disappeared. Elena kept reading, finding more pieces of the story. Giuseppe Ricci, named in the article as a close family friend, had vanished around the same time. The FBI had launched an investigation into the Morelli family's finances. Antonio had died 5 years later of a heart attack, but not before consolidating power and eliminating most of his enemies, including, presumably, Giuseppe Ricci. Had Catherine known about Giuseppe's betrayal? Was that why she documented everyone so carefully? Because she knew someone in Antonio's inner circle was dangerous? Elena's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Stop searching. Delete your browser history. These searches can be tracked. V. Of course, Victor was monitoring her internet activity. Of course. Elena slammed the laptop shut and threw herself back on the bed, frustrated and frightened in equal measure. She couldn't search for answers, couldn't leave the house, couldn't make her own choices about her own safety. But lying there in the darkness, she realized something important. Her grandmother had lived with this fear every day, had spent decades looking over her shoulder, wondering if today would be the day someone found her, had died without ever telling her family the truth about who she'd been. Elena didn't want that life. Didn't want to spend years running from shadows, which meant she needed to help Victor find the truth. Not just for her own safety, but to finally put her grandmother's secrets to rest. Around midnight, she heard a car pull up outside. Footsteps, low voices. Then Victor was in the house, his voice drifting up from downstairs. Status? All clear. She's been upstairs since we arrived. Did some internet searching until you told her to stop. Good. Get some rest. I'll take the night shift. Elena sat up, listening. Victor was staying here? All night? She crept to the bedroom door, opened it slightly. Downstairs, she could see Victor settling into the living room sofa, his jacket off, shoulder holster visible. He looked exhausted. Elena should go back to bed, should leave him alone. Instead, she found herself walking downstairs. Victor looked up as she appeared, his hand moving instinctively toward his gun before he recognized her. Can't sleep? He asked. Can you? A faint smile. Not usually. Elena sat in the armchair across from him, tucking her legs under her. Is your guy going to be okay? The one in the hospital? Probably. He's young, strong. He'll heal. Victor's expression was grim. But he's terrified now. Knows that asking questions about the wrong things can get you hurt. Do you know who did it? I have a name. Someone who worked for my father's old competitors. Apparently they think Catherine's files might contain information they can use against me. Victor's fingers drummed against his knee. They're wrong. What Catherine documented was from my father's era. Different operations, different methods. But they don't know that. So what happens now? Now I send a message back. Make it clear that targeting my people carries consequences. His eyes met hers. You don't need to know the details. Because I'm better off ignorant? Because you're better off not being an accessory. Victor leaned back, studying her. You're handling this better than I expected. Most people would have broken by now. Maybe I'm still in shock. Maybe. Or maybe you're stronger than you look. He paused. Your grandmother was like that. Looked delicate, but had steel underneath. My father used to say she was the only person who could tell him no and make it stick. Elena wanted to ask more about her grandmother, about the woman who'd lived this impossible double life. But Victor's phone buzzed, and his attention shifted immediately. He read the message, his jaw tightening. What? Elena asked. The feds just issued a subpoena for your financial records, bank accounts, credit cards, everything. He looked up at her. They're building a case, trying to prove you've been receiving unexplained income or making suspicious transactions. But I haven't, I know. But they're going to examine every deposit, every withdrawal, looking for patterns that fit their narrative. Victor stood, pacing, which means we're out of time. Tomorrow, we finish going through Catherine's things. Find whatever else she hid. Then we figure out how to make this whole mess disappear before the federal government decides you're worth prosecuting. Elena's stomach churned. Can they actually prosecute me for something my grandmother did 30 years ago? They can try. Conspiracy, accessory after the fact, obstruction of justice. Prosecutors are creative when they want to be. Victor stopped pacing, turned to face her. But they won't get the chance. Because I'm going to protect you. That's the deal we made. Why? The question burst out before Elena could stop it. Why do you care so much about protecting me? I'm nobody. I'm just a waitress whose grandmother happened to marry your father for 8 months. Victor was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer than Elena had heard before. Because my father spent the last 15 years of his life paranoid and broken. Because Catherine's disappearance destroyed something in him that never healed. Because I've spent my entire adult life wondering what really happened back then. He met her eyes. And because you're not nobody, Elena. You're the last living link to answers I've been searching for since I was 20 years old. That makes you valuable. That makes you worth protecting." The honesty in his voice caught Elena off guard. She'd assumed his interest was purely mercenary: find the files, neutralize the threat, move on. But standing here in the dim living room, seeing the exhaustion and old pain in his face, she realized this was personal for him too. "I wish I had those answers for you," she said quietly. "I wish I could tell you why she ran, what she was thinking, what she planned to do with all that information. But I don't know." "Then we'll figure it out together." Victor checked his watch. "It's late. You should try to sleep. Tomorrow's going to be long." Elena stood but paused before heading upstairs. "Victor, the man in the hospital, will he be safe there?" "He has guards, 3 of my best people. No one's getting close to him." Victor's expression hardened. "And the person who hurt him is going to learn what happens when you touch my people." There was something cold and final in his tone. Elena didn't ask for details, didn't want to know what form Victor's retaliation would take. She went upstairs, climbed into bed, and this time managed to fall into an uneasy sleep. She dreamed of her grandmother again. But this time, Catherine wasn't running. She was sitting in a beautiful room, writing in a leather journal, while men in expensive suits argued in Italian in the next room. In the dream, Catherine looked up at Elena and said, "Some secrets keep you safe. Others get you killed. The trick is knowing which is which." Elena woke with the words still echoing in her mind. Downstairs, she could hear Victor on the phone, his voice low and commanding. Morning light streamed through the windows. Another day in this strange new life. Another day hunting for ghosts and secrets. Another day deeper into a world she'd never asked to enter but couldn't escape. Elena got up, showered, dressed, and went downstairs to face whatever came next. Because one thing was becoming clear: the only way out was through the secrets, through the danger, through whatever truth her grandmother had died protecting. And whether she was ready or not, Elena was about to find out what that truth was worth. Victor was waiting in the kitchen when Elena came downstairs. 2 cups of coffee already poured, a stack of documents spread across the table. He looked like he'd been up for hours. His shirt sleeves rolled to his elbows, tie loosened. The morning stubble on his jaw made him look more dangerous somehow, less polished and controlled. "We have a situation," he said without preamble. "Sit down." Elena's stomach nodded, but she took the chair across from him. "What kind of situation?" "The federal agents executed their search warrant on your apartment last night. Found nothing, obviously, since we'd already cleared everything out." Victor pushed one of the documents toward her. "But they also contacted your former employer, asked questions about your tips, your schedule, who you interacted with at the restaurant." "The Oasis?" Elena's hands wrapped around the coffee cup, seeking warmth. "What did they want to know?" "Whether you'd ever had contact with known criminals, whether you'd received unusually large tips, whether anyone had specifically requested you as their server." His eyes met hers. "Whether you'd served me that night." The implication hit Elena like cold water. "They know about you, about us. They know I was at the Oasis the night you disappeared from your normal life. They're trying to establish a connection, build a narrative that I recruited you for something." Victor's voice was matter of fact, but Elena heard the tension underneath. "Which means we need to be very careful about how this looks. Any contact between us has to have a legitimate explanation." "What kind of legitimate explanation is there for me living in your house?" "You're not living in my house. You're living in a property owned by a corporate entity 3 layers removed from my name. As far as anyone official knows, you're house-sitting for a friend while you deal with your mother's medical crisis." Victor pulled up something on his phone, showed her a fabricated employment contract. "As of yesterday, you're also employed as a personal assistant to one of my legitimate business consultants. Salary, benefits, tax withholding, all completely legal and documented." Elena stared at the contract bearing her forged signature. "You created a fake job for me?" "I created a real job with fake duties. There's a difference." Victor pocketed his phone. "The point is, if the feds come asking questions, you have answers that don't involve criminal conspiracy. You needed work, you got work. You needed housing, you got housing. Everything appears above board." Appears being the key word. "Welcome to my world." Victor's smile was humorless. Everything appears legitimate right up until it doesn't. The trick is making sure no one looks close enough to see the cracks. Elena sipped her coffee, trying to process this latest development. Every day brought new layers of deception, new stories to remember, new ways her life was being rewritten without her permission. What about my mother, she asked. If they investigate her medical care, paid for by a charitable foundation that provides assistance to families in medical crisis, which it actually does, about 40% of the time. The other 60% is money laundering, but the paperwork is clean. Victor's expression softened slightly. Your mother's care is legitimate, Elena. That part isn't a lie. She needed help, and she's getting it. Funded by criminal money. Funded by money. The morality of its origin is philosophical at this point. Victor gathered his documents into a neat stack. We can debate ethics later. Right now, we have work to do. I want to finish going through Catherine's storage unit today. Every box, every item, until we find what we're looking for. And what exactly are we looking for? Elena set down her coffee cup. You keep saying Catherine hid something, but we already found the financial documents. What else could there be? Victor was quiet for a moment, seeming to choose his words carefully. The documents we found yesterday? Those prove Catherine had access to sensitive information, but they don't explain why she took them. Don't explain what she planned to do with them. He leaned forward. My father spent 15 years convinced Catherine was going to destroy him, but she never did. Which means either she couldn't, someone or something stopped her, or she didn't want to, and I need to know which. Why does it matter now? Your father's dead. Whatever happened back then is over. It matters because someone else knows about Catherine's files. Someone willing to torture my people to find them. Victor's voice went cold. It matters because those old secrets might be the key to identifying who's targeting us now. And it matters because I've spent 20 years wondering if my father was wrong about Catherine. If maybe she wasn't the villain in this story. The vulnerability in his voice surprised Elena. She'd seen Victor angry, calculating, commanding, but this was different. This was personal in a way that had nothing to do with business or territory or power. You cared about her, Elena said softly. Didn't you? Even after she left. Victor stood abruptly, turning toward the window. She was kind to me, patient. My father had been married 3 times before Catherine, and none of those women gave a damn about his 20-year-old son. But Catherine did. He was silent for a moment. When she disappeared, I was almost relieved. I thought maybe she'd gotten away from the violence, the constant danger. I hoped she'd found something better. She did, Elena said. She found my grandfather, found a quiet life, found peace, I think. Then why keep the documents? Victor turned back to face her. Why hold on to insurance if you're never planning to use it? Why risk someone finding it after you're gone? Elena had been asking herself the same question since yesterday. Maybe she wanted someone to find it. Maybe she wanted the truth to come out eventually, when it couldn't hurt anyone anymore. Or maybe she was protecting someone. Victor's eyes were sharp, thoughtful. Someone she cared about enough to risk everything. Before Elena could respond, Victor's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his expression hardened. Get your jacket. We need to leave. Now. What's wrong? Federal agents just arrived at your mother's facility. They're asking to speak with her about your whereabouts. Victor was already moving toward the door. Marcus, bring the car around. We need to intercept before they upset Linda. The drive to the medical facility was tense and silent. Elena's mind raced with worst-case scenarios. What would her mother tell them? What questions would they ask? How much did her mother even know about the situation? They arrived to find 2 agents in dark suits standing in the facility's lobby, showing credentials to the front desk staff. Elena recognized the tall one from the surveillance photos Victor had shown her days ago. Victor's hand closed around Elena's wrist before she could move forward. Let me handle this, he said quietly. Then, louder, with perfect casual authority, Can I help you, gentlemen? The tall agent turned, his expression neutral but assessing. We're here on federal business, and you are? Victor Morelli. I'm covering the medical expenses for Mrs. Linda Cross, the patient you're here to see. Victor's voice was smooth, professional. Is there a problem? The second agent, shorter and stockier, stepped forward. We have some questions for Mrs. Cross regarding her daughter's recent activities. Routine inquiry. Routine inquiries don't usually involve showing up at medical facilities unannounced. Victor pulled out his phone. I assume you've cleared this visit with Mrs. Cross's medical team? She's recovering from a stroke. Any undue stress could be dangerous. The tall agent's jaw tightened. We're aware of her condition. This won't take long. I'm sure it won't because her lawyer is on the way. Victor typed something on his phone. Sarah Mitchell. Perhaps you know her? She's represented several of my business associates in federal matters. Very effective. Elena watched the agents exchange glances. The name clearly meant something to them. We just want to ask a few questions. Then you can ask them with Mrs. Cross's legal representation present. Or you can come back with a subpoena and we'll arrange a proper interview at a time that doesn't jeopardize her health. Victor's smile was polite but inflexible. Your choice, gentlemen. The shorter agent looked like he wanted to argue, but the tall one put a hand on his partner's arm. We'll be in touch, the tall one said. He looked past Victor to Elena, who'd been standing frozen near the entrance. Ms. Cross, we'll need to speak with you as well, soon. Ms. Cross is represented by counsel, Victor said smoothly. All inquiries should go through her attorney. I believe you have Sarah Mitchell's contact information? The agents left without another word, but their departure felt more like a tactical retreat than a surrender. Elena watched them go, her heart pounding. That was, she started. Predictable. Victor gestured toward the elevator. Let's check on your mother, make sure they didn't upset her before we arrived. They found Linda propped up in bed, looking confused but unhurt. Her physical therapist was with her, running through arm exercises. Elena! Her mother's face brightened. What are you doing here so early? And Mr. Morelli, what a nice surprise. We were in the area, Victor said easily. Thought we'd stop by. How are you feeling today? Better every day. Sarah here thinks I might be able to use a walker by next week. Linda's smile faltered slightly. Although something strange just happened. The front desk called asking if I wanted visitors. Federal agents, they said. But I don't know any federal agents. Elena and Victor exchanged glances. Probably a mix-up, Elena said, forcing her voice to stay light. Wrong room or something. Must have been. Linda didn't look entirely convinced, but she let it drop. Well, since you're here, you can watch me show off. Sarah, should we demonstrate the new exercises? Elena spent the next 20 minutes watching her mother work through physical therapy, smiling and encouraging while her mind spun with anxiety. The federal agents knew where her mother was, knew Elena would come here eventually. They were applying pressure, making it clear that nowhere was truly safe from their investigation. When they finally left the facility, Victor was on the phone immediately, his voice clipped and angry. I want to know who authorized that visit. Which agent? Which supervisor? Which office? A pause. I don't care if it was routine. They don't show up at medical facilities without clearing it first. Someone's pushing boundaries, and I want to know who and why. He hung up and turned to Elena. Get in the car, we're going back to the storage unit. I want those boxes finished today. Victor, they're not going to stop. You know that, right? The federal agents, whoever beat up your guy, all of it. They're not going to just give up because we found some old financial records. I know. Victor's expression was grim, which is why we need to find everything. Not just the documents Catherine took, but the reason she took them. Because somewhere in her story is the key to ending this. And I'm done playing defense. They spent the rest of the day methodically going through the remaining boxes in the storage unit. More photographs, more receipts, more fragments of a life Catherine had tried to leave behind. Elena found herself studying her grandmother's handwriting on old grocery lists and appointment cards, trying to understand the woman behind the careful penmanship. Around 3 in the afternoon, buried in a box of old kitchen items, Elena found something that made her freeze. A journal, leather-bound, worn at the edges, filled with her grandmother's handwriting. Victor. He was beside her instantly, taking the journal with careful hands. He opened it to the first page, and Elena saw the date, January 1994. This is from when she was with my father, Victor said quietly. He began reading aloud, his voice steady, but Elena could hear the tension underneath. The journal entries were intimate, detailed. Catherine wrote about her daily life with Antonio, about the strange duality of loving a dangerous man, about the fear that lived constantly beneath the surface of their relationship. She wrote about Victor, too, about the quiet young man who seemed uncomfortable in his father's world, who treated her with respect when others saw her as just another trophy wife. But as the entries progressed through spring and into summer, the tone changed. Catherine started noticing things. Discrepancies in the business accounts. Meetings Antonio took without telling her. Phone calls that ended abruptly when she entered the room. Then, in an entry dated August 1994, I found the photographs today. Giuseppe's meetings with the federal agents. I wasn't supposed to see them. They were hidden in Antonio's office safe. But I have the combination now. I've seen everything. And I understand why Antonio has been so paranoid lately. His closest friend is betraying him, has been for months. And Antonio knows, but he's waiting for something. Gathering his own evidence, I think. Planning his response. I'm terrified of what happens when he moves against Giuseppe. Terrified of being caught in the crossfire. Terrified that Giuseppe might realize I know and come for me first. Victor's hands tightened on the journal. She knew. Before the assassination attempt, before everything fell apart, she knew about Giuseppe's betrayal. He kept reading, flipping through pages faster now. The entries became more frantic, more fearful. Catherine documented conversations she'd overheard, meetings she'd witnessed. She was building her own case file, but not against Antonio, against Giuseppe and whoever he was working with. Then came the entry dated September 15, 1994. Giuseppe approached me today. He knows that I know. He said if I tell Antonio, he'll make sure I disappear before Antonio can protect me. But if I help him, if I gather information and pass it to his FBI contacts, he'll make sure I'm protected when everything comes down. He wants me to be his informant, his insurance policy. I told him I needed time to think, but I've already made my decision. I'm leaving. Tonight. Taking everything I've gathered and disappearing before either of them can use me as a weapon against the other. I can't win this game. The only way to survive is not to play. The journal ended there. The rest of the pages were blank. Victor closed the journal slowly, his face unreadable. She wasn't running from my father. She was running from Giuseppe and from the FBI. She was protecting herself, Elena said. Caught between two dangerous men, both trying to use her, so she just left and took the evidence with her as insurance. If Giuseppe came after her, she could threaten to expose his FBI collaboration to my father's other enemies. If my father came after her, she could threaten to give everything to the FBI. Victor's voice was quiet, almost awed. She played them both, turned their own paranoia into her protection. Elena thought about her grandmother, the quiet woman who'd baked cookies and told bedtime stories. It was impossible to reconcile that image with the strategic thinker who'd outsmarted dangerous men and disappeared without a trace. What happened to Giuseppe? Elena asked. My father found him 3 months after Catherine disappeared, made him confess to the FBI collaboration before... Victor trailed off. Giuseppe disappeared. Officially, he fled the country. Unofficially, he's buried somewhere off the coast of Florida. Elena's stomach turned. Your father killed him. My father protected his empire. That's what he did, what he taught me to do. Victor stood, tucking the journal inside his jacket. But it means Catherine's insurance policy worked. By the time my father found Giuseppe, Catherine was long gone. The evidence she'd gathered was useless to him. And without Catherine to testify, the FBI's case fell apart. Everyone won except Giuseppe. And your father spent the rest of his life wondering if Catherine had betrayed him. Yes. Victor's expression was complicated. Relief and sadness and old anger mixed together. He died thinking the woman he loved had been working with his enemies. Never knew she'd been trying to survive them both. Elena touched his arm gently. I'm sorry. I know you wanted different answers. Victor looked down at her hand on his arm, something shifting in his expression. For a moment, he seemed younger, more vulnerable. Then the mask slid back into place. We're not done yet, he said. The journal explains why Catherine ran, but it doesn't explain who's looking for this information now. Giuseppe is dead. My father is dead. The FBI case is ancient history. So who benefits from digging up 30-year-old secrets? Before Elena could answer, Victor's phone rang. He listened for a moment, his face going dangerously still. Where? A pause. How many? Another pause. Lock it down. I'm on my way. He hung up and turned to Elena, his voice urgent. Someone just broke into your old apartment, tore the place apart looking for something. But there's nothing there. Your people already cleared everything out. Exactly. Which means whoever did this is desperate and getting sloppy. Victor was already moving toward the door. Marcus, get Elena back to the house. Full security protocols. No one in or out without my explicit approval. Wait. Where are you going? To find out who's dumb enough to leave evidence at a crime scene. Victor paused at the door, looking back at her. Stay at the house, Elena. Don't open the door for anyone. Don't go anywhere. Just stay safe until I get back. Then he was gone, and Elena was left with Marcus and the weight of new revelations. The drive back to the house felt longer than usual. Elena stared out the window, her mind replaying her grandmother's journal entries. Catherine had been so brave, so strategic, had risked everything to escape an impossible situation, had succeeded against terrible odds. And now, 30 years later, someone was still hunting for the secret she'd died protecting. When they arrived at the house, Marcus did his usual security sweep before allowing Elena inside. She went straight to the living room, pulled out her laptop, and started searching. Giuseppe Ricci had been a real person. The searches confirmed it. A wealthy businessman with ties to Miami's Italian community who disappeared in late 1994 under suspicious circumstances. No body was ever found. The FBI investigation into the Morelli organization had quietly closed a year later due to lack of evidence. But something in one of the articles caught Elena's attention. Giuseppe Ricci had a son, Marco Ricci, who would be in his 50s now, who had inherited his father's legitimate businesses but apparently none of his criminal connections. Or so the official story went. Elena kept digging, following links and references, building a picture of Marco Ricci's life. Successful real estate developer, philanthropist, married with 3 children. On the surface, exactly the kind of man who'd want nothing to do with his father's dark past. But Elena had learned enough over the past few days to know that surfaces lied. She was so absorbed in her research that she didn't hear the doorbell until Marcus called up the stairs. Miss Cross? Someone here to see you. Elena's heart jumped. Victor said no visitors. It's your mother's doctor. Dr. Chen says there's an issue with your mother's medication. Elena hurried downstairs to find Dr. Chen in the foyer, medical bag in hand, looking concerned. Is my mother okay? Elena asked immediately. She's fine, but we need to adjust her prescriptions. I brought the new medications and need you to sign some consent forms. Dr. Chen smiled reassuringly. Just a precaution. Her blood pressure has been elevated, and we want to get ahead of any potential complications. Something felt off. Elena couldn't put her finger on it, but some instinct was screaming at her to be careful. Can't this wait until tomorrow? I can come to the facility. I'm here now, and the sooner we adjust her medications, the better. Dr. Chen pulled out a tablet, swiped through some screens. It'll just take a moment. If you could sign here. Elena looked at Marcus, who was watching the interaction with a neutral expression. He'd been there when Dr. Chen transferred her mother, had seen them interact before. Nothing about this should feel wrong, but it did. Dr. Chen, what's my mother's current blood pressure reading? Elena asked. The doctor didn't hesitate. 145/90, higher than we'd like, but manageable with the new medication protocol. Elena felt her stomach drop. Her mother's blood pressure had always run low. Even after the stroke, she'd been around 110/70. The doctors had been pleased with how stable it was. This wasn't Dr. Chen. Elena took a step back, her hand reaching for her phone. But before she could move, the fake Dr. Chen pulled a gun from her medical bag. Don't, the woman said quietly. Don't scream, don't run, don't do anything stupid. Marcus moved instantly, his own weapon appearing, but 2 more men emerged from the garden. They must have been waiting, hidden from the initial security sweep. Drop it, one of them ordered Marcus, or the girl gets hurt. Elena's world narrowed to the gun pointed at her chest and the cold realization that Victor's protection hadn't been enough. Someone had gotten to her anyway. The fake Dr. Chen smiled, and it was nothing like the warm professional expression Elena remembered from the real doctor. "Now then," the woman said, "let's talk about your grandmother's journal, and what else you've been hiding." Marcus slowly lowered his weapon, his face a mask of controlled fury. Elena knew he was calculating odds, looking for openings, trying to figure out how to protect her. But there were 3 of them, and only one of him, and Elena was the target they wanted. "Who are you?" Elena asked, proud that her voice barely shook. "Someone who's been looking for Catherine DeLuca's secrets for a very long time." The woman gestured with the gun. "Sit down, both of you, and let's have a nice conversation about family legacies and the things we do to protect them." Elena sat, her mind racing. Victor didn't know these people were here, couldn't know until he got back, and by then, it might be too late. The woman pulled out a phone, took a photo of Elena, and sent it to someone. "Your boyfriend's going to get a very interesting message soon, along with instructions on what to do if he wants to see you alive again." "He's not my boyfriend," Elena said automatically. "Isn't he?" The woman's smile widened. "The way he talks about you, the way he's been protecting you, I'd say there's something more than business happening there." She leaned forward. "But that's not what we're here to discuss. Tell me about the journal, Elena. Tell me what Catherine wrote about my father." And suddenly, Elena understood. This woman was Giuseppe Ricci's daughter. Had to be. The same age, the same sharp intelligence in her eyes, the same ruthless calculation. "Your father tried to kill Victor's father," Elena said. "Tried to use my grandmother as an informant. She wrote it all down. My father was trying to take down a criminal empire. He was working with the FBI, trying to do the right thing." The woman's voice was tight with old anger. "And Antonio Morelli murdered him for it, covered it up, made my father disappear like he was nothing." "So this is revenge?" Elena's voice was steadier now, understanding giving her courage. 30 years later, you're coming after Victor for what his father did?" "I'm coming after what should have been mine. The evidence my father gathered, the deals he made with the FBI. When Antonio killed him, all of that disappeared. My family lost everything. Our reputation, our connections, our place in this world." The woman's eyes were cold. "But Catherine took the evidence with her. And now I want it back. Everything she documented, everything my father died trying to expose." "Why? It's 30 years old. Whatever your father was trying to prove, it doesn't matter anymore. It matters because the Morelli family still has power, still has influence, still controls half of Miami's legitimate business community built on a foundation of crime and blood." The woman's voice was passionate now, dropping the pretense of calm. "Victor Morelli is just like his father. Worse, maybe, because he's smarter about hiding it. And I'm going to use Catherine's documentation to destroy everything Antonio built, to finish what my father started." Elena's phone buzzed. The woman grabbed it, looked at the screen, and smiled. "Victor's asking where you are. How sweet." She typed something quickly and sent it. "I told him you went to visit your mother. That gives us a little time before he realizes something's wrong. He'll figure it out. He has people everywhere." "Not everywhere." The woman gestured to one of her men, who pulled Marcus to his feet roughly. "Take him downstairs. Make sure he's comfortable but can't cause problems." Marcus met Elena's eyes, and she saw the apology there, the promise that he'd tried his best. Then he was being led away, and Elena was alone with Giuseppe Ricci's daughter and her remaining guard. "Now," the woman said, settling into the chair across from Elena, "let's start with what you found in Catherine's storage unit. And don't bother lying. We've been watching that facility for 3 days. Saw you and Victor going through boxes. Saw you find the journal. I want to know everything that was in it." Elena's mind raced. If she told the truth, she'd be giving this woman exactly what she needed to go after Victor. But if she lied and the woman found out, things would get much worse very quickly. "The journal explained why my grandmother left," Elena said carefully. "She knew about your father's betrayal, knew he was working with the FBI, and she knew Victor's father was planning to kill him. She was caught in the middle, so she ran." "What else?" "She documented your father's meetings with federal agents, dates, times, locations, everything that proved he was an informant." Elena paused, watching the woman's face. Is that what you wanted to hear? That your father was definitely working against the Morelli organization? My father was a hero, the woman said flatly. He was trying to bring down criminals. The fact that Antonio Morelli murdered him for it just proves who the real villain was. Maybe there weren't any heroes in that story, Elena said quietly. Maybe they were all just people making impossible choices and hoping they'd survive. The woman's hand tightened on her gun. Don't philosophize with me. Just tell me where the rest of Catherine's evidence is. The financial records, the photographs, all of it. I know you found more than just a journal. Elena's breath caught. If this woman got her hands on all of Catherine's documentation, she'd have everything she needed to damage Victor's organization, to destroy the legitimate businesses he'd built, to finish what Giuseppe Ricci had started 30 years ago. But Elena also knew that Victor had the originals, had already digitized and secured them. What she could give this woman wouldn't be the complete picture. The documents are in a safe deposit box, Elena lied. Victor has the key. I don't have access to them. Then you're going to help me get that key. The woman stood, gesturing with her gun. Get up. We're going for a drive. Where? To see Victor. To explain what happens if he doesn't give me what I want. The woman's smile was cold. And what happens to you if he refuses? Elena's phone buzzed again. The woman grabbed it, looked at the screen, and her expression changed. Well, it seems Victor figured out something was wrong faster than I expected. She showed Elena the screen. Multiple texts from Victor, each more urgent than the last. Where are you? Elena, answer me. Marcus isn't responding. What's happening? If someone's with you, send me a flower emoji. The last message had come in 30 seconds ago. The woman typed carefully. Everything's fine. Phone was on silent, at the house. She sent it and waited. Elena held her breath, praying Victor would see through the lie, praying he'd realize something was wrong. The response came quickly. What did I tell you about opening doors? The woman stared at the message, trying to decipher it. Elena felt a flash of hope. Victor was testing, trying to verify it was really her. But what was the right answer? What had Victor told her about doors? The woman looked at Elena. What's the answer? I don't remember, Elena said honestly. Wrong answer. The woman raised the gun, pointed it directly at Elena's face. Try harder. Elena's mind raced through the past few days, trying to remember every conversation, every instruction. Victor had said so many things about security protocols, about being careful, about, don't open the door for anyone, Elena said suddenly. Not even him unless Marcus was with him. The woman lowered the gun slightly and typed, don't open doors without Marcus. Got it. They waited. 10 seconds. 20. 30. Then Victor's response. Good girl. See you soon. The woman smiled triumphantly. Looks like we're still in business. Now let's... The front door exploded inward. Victor came through first, gun drawn, his face a mask of cold fury. Behind him were 4 more men, all armed, all moving with military precision. The woman grabbed Elena, pulling her close, gun pressed to Elena's temple. Stop! Everyone stops or I kill her right now! Victor froze, his weapon trained on the woman. His eyes met Elena's and she saw calculation there. Assessment. He was figuring angles, odds, possibilities. Let her go, Sophia, Victor said, his voice eerily calm. This doesn't end well for you. Sophia. So Elena had been right. Giuseppe Ricci's daughter. It ends with me getting what my father died for, Sophia said. Everything Catherine DeLuca took. Every piece of evidence, every document, every photograph. Or I kill your girlfriend right here. She's not my girlfriend. Then you won't mind if I shoot her. Victor's gun didn't waver. You're not going to shoot her, because the second you do, you lose your leverage and my men put 6 bullets in you before you hit the ground. But she'll already be dead. Sophia's voice was tight. Is that worth protecting 30-year-old secrets? The secrets aren't what I'm protecting. Victor's eyes never left Sophia's face. Elena, when I move, drop straight down. Don't think, just drop. Elena's heart was pounding so hard she could barely hear. Victor, trust me. Everything happened at once. Victor shifted his aim slightly, and Sophia's attention flickered to follow the movement. In that split second, Elena dropped, throwing herself sideways. Gunfire erupted, 3 shots in rapid succession. She hit the ground hard, pain exploding through her shoulder. When the noise stopped, Sophia was on the ground, blood spreading across her chest. Victor's men had the other guard face down, hands behind his head, and Victor was kneeling beside Elena, his hands running over her frantically, checking for wounds. "Are you hit? Elena, talk to me. Are you hit?" "My shoulder," Elena gasped. "I think I landed wrong." Victor's hands found the injury, and Elena cried out. "It's not a bullet wound. You hit the corner of the coffee table." His voice was shaking, barely controlled. "You scared the hell out of me. When I got that text, when I realized someone was in the house, how did you know?" Elena managed through the pain. "You never say got it. You say I understand or okay or fine, but never got it." Victor's hand cupped her face gently. "Small things. But I noticed small things about you." Behind them, someone was calling for paramedics. Someone else was checking Sophia's pulse. The woman was still breathing, but barely. "Marcus," Elena said suddenly. They took him downstairs. We found him. He's fine. Angry, but fine." Victor helped Elena sit up slowly, supporting her injured shoulder. "Can you stand?" With his help, Elena got to her feet. Her shoulder was screaming, but nothing felt broken. She'd have bruises, maybe a sprain, but she was alive. Sophia was being loaded onto a stretcher, her eyes closed, blood everywhere. Elena felt a strange mix of pity and relief watching her being carried away. "Is she going to make it?" Elena asked. "Probably. My men are good shots. They aim to disable, not kill." Victor's arm was still around Elena, holding her steady. "She'll face charges for assault, breaking and entering, attempted kidnapping, federal charges since she involved interstate elements. She'll be away for a long time. She just wanted justice for her father. She wanted revenge. There's a difference." Victor guided Elena toward the couch, helped her sit. "Justice would have been letting the past stay buried. Revenge is dragging everyone down with you." A paramedic appeared, examining Elena's shoulder with gentle hands. "Nothing broken, but you'll want x-rays to be sure. Ice it tonight. Keep it elevated. You were lucky." Lucky. Elena almost laughed. Nothing about the past few days felt lucky. After the paramedics left, after the police had taken statements and the crime scene was processed, after Sophia and her accomplices had been loaded into ambulances and police cars, Elena found herself alone with Victor in the now quiet house. "I need to move you somewhere else," Victor said. "This location is compromised. They knew where you were." "How?" Elena was so tired, every word felt like effort. Inside source, maybe. Or good surveillance, or dumb luck. Victor paced the room, energy and anger radiating from him. "Doesn't matter. What matters is keeping you safe until all of this is resolved." "When will that be?" Victor stopped pacing, turned to face her. "When I make sure no one else is coming for you. When the federal investigation runs its course and finds nothing. When every loose end from Catherine's past is tied up for good." His expression softened slightly. "When I can let you go without worrying you'll be dead within a week." The words hung between them. Let you go. As if Elena was something he was holding on to, something he'd eventually have to release. "What if I don't want to be let go?" The question escaped before Elena could stop it. Victor's eyes locked on hers. "What? What if I'm tired of pretending this is temporary? That I'm going to go back to my normal life when this is over?" Elena stood despite her injured shoulder, despite the exhaustion. "My grandmother spent 30 years running from her past, living in fear that someone would find her. I don't want that. I want—" She didn't know how to finish the sentence, didn't know what she wanted exactly, just knew that somewhere in the chaos and danger of the past few days, something had shifted inside her. Victor crossed to her slowly, his hand reaching up to touch her face the way he had earlier. "Elena, you're in shock. You've had a traumatic experience. This isn't the time for what? For honesty?" Elena met his eyes. "You said you noticed small things about me. Well, I notice things about you too. The way you check on me 3 times a night. The way you make sure I eat. The way you've built your whole schedule around keeping me safe. That's not just about protecting an asset or honoring a deal with a dead man's stepdaughter. Victor's jaw tightened. You don't know what you're saying. I know exactly what I'm saying, and I think you know it too. Elena took a breath, gathering courage. I'm not asking for promises or declarations. I'm just asking you to stop pretending you're going to let me walk away when this is over. For a long moment, Victor just looked at her. Then his hand slid to the back of her neck, and he pulled her close, his forehead resting against hers. I've spent 20 years making calculated decisions, he said quietly, building walls, keeping distance, not letting anyone close enough to be a weakness. His breath was warm against her skin. But then you walked into that restaurant wearing a dead woman's perfume, and everything I'd carefully constructed started falling apart. Victor, let me finish. His grip tightened slightly. You're right. I'm not going to let you walk away. Can't let you walk away, even if it's the smart thing to do. Even if keeping you in my world puts you in more danger than letting you go. He pulled back enough to look at her. But you need to understand what you're choosing. This isn't going to get easier. There will always be threats, always be danger, always be someone who wants to use you to get to me. I understand. Do you? Because once you're truly part of this world, there's no going back. You can't undo what you know, can't unsee what you've seen. His voice was intense, urgent. I need you to be absolutely certain, because I won't survive losing you, not after... Elena kissed him. Cut off his words, his warnings, his careful reasoning. It was impulsive and probably stupid, and her shoulder hurt like hell, but she didn't care. Victor froze for half a second, then kissed her back. His hands came up to frame her face, gentle despite the intensity of the kiss. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathing hard. That was a bad idea, Victor said. Probably. You're injured, in shock, not thinking clearly. I'm thinking perfectly clearly. Elena's good hand fisted in his shirt. And I'm choosing this. Choosing you. Choosing to stop running from the legacy my grandmother left me. Victor studied her face for a long moment. Then he made a decision. She could see it in his eyes the moment he stopped fighting what was happening between them. Then we do this right, he said. No more half measures. No more pretending this is temporary. His thumb traced her cheekbone. You're mine to protect. Mine to keep safe. And anyone who comes for you answers to me. Understood? The possessiveness in his voice should have frightened her. Instead, Elena felt something settle into place. A rightness that defied logic or reason. Understood, she whispered. Victor kissed her again, softer this time. When he pulled back, some of the tension had left his shoulders. Come on, he said. Let's get you to a new location. Somewhere actually secure this time. He helped her stand, supporting her injured shoulder. And tomorrow, we finish this. We find everyone who might still be looking for Catherine's secrets, and we eliminate the threat, permanently. As they left the compromised safe house, Elena realized her life had irrevocably changed. Not just in the past few days, but in the past few hours. She'd stopped being a victim of circumstances and become a willing participant in Victor's dangerous world. Her grandmother had run from this life, had chosen safety over power, quiet over danger. But Elena was choosing differently, was choosing to stand beside Victor instead of hiding from what that meant. Whether that made her brave or foolish, she'd find out soon enough. The new safe house was in Key Biscayne, a waterfront property with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Atlantic. Victor's security team had swept it twice before allowing them inside, and now guards were positioned at every entrance, their presence both comforting and unsettling. Elena stood at the window, watching moonlight dance across the waves, her injured shoulder wrapped in ice and bandages. Behind her, she could hear Victor on the phone, his voice low and commanding as he coordinated responses to the evening's attack. I want Sophia Ricci's medical records from the hospital. Who visits her? Who calls? Every word she says when she wakes up. A pause. And find out who else knew about that safe house. Someone gave her the address. I want to know who and why. Elena turned to watch him. He'd changed clothes, traded the blood-spattered suit for dark jeans and a black shirt, but the tension hadn't left his shoulders. She wondered if it ever did. If there was ever a moment when Victor Morelli allowed himself to truly relax. He ended the call and met her eyes across the room, For a moment, neither of them spoke. The kiss from earlier hung between them, changing everything and nothing all at once. Your mother's been moved, Victor said finally. Different facility, better security. She doesn't know anything happened tonight. As far as she's concerned, they're just transferring her to a location with better physical therapy equipment. Thank you. Elena's voice was quiet. For protecting her. For protecting me. That's not something you need to thank me for. Victor crossed to the bar, poured 2 glasses of scotch, and brought one to Elena. That's just what happens now. You're under my protection, permanently. The word permanently settled over Elena like a weight. She sipped the scotch, feeling it burn down her throat, warming her from the inside. Tell me about Sophia, she said. About Giuseppe's family. Did you know she was out there looking for revenge? Victor leaned against the window frame, looking out at the dark water. I knew Giuseppe had children, a son and a daughter. Marco runs his father's legitimate businesses, wants nothing to do with the past. Sophia, though, she disappeared about 10 years ago, moved to Europe, or so I heard. I assumed she'd moved on. She didn't move on. She was planning, waiting. Elena traced the rim of her glass with one finger. She said your family took everything from hers, their reputation, their place in the world. She wanted it back. By destroying me. Victor's voice was flat. By using Catherine's evidence to expose my organization, ruin my legitimate businesses, finish what her father started. Would it work? If she'd gotten the documents, could she actually damage you? Victor was quiet for a long moment. Probably not. Most of what Catherine documented was my father's operation, not mine. Different methods, different networks. But it would raise questions, draw attention, force me to spend resources defending against investigations instead of building my empire. He turned to face her. In this world, perception matters as much as reality. If people think you're vulnerable, they circle like sharks. Sophia knew that. She was smart enough to hurt me even if she couldn't destroy me. But now she's in custody. The threat's over. Is it? Victor's expression was skeptical. Sophia had resources, connections, a plan. She didn't do all of this alone. Someone helped her find that safe house. Someone's been feeding her information about our movements, our security. Until I know who, the threat isn't over. Elena felt the weight of his words. They'd stopped one attack, but there would be others. This was what choosing Victor's world meant. Constant vigilance, endless threats, never being truly safe. I can see you thinking, Victor said, studying her face, second-guessing your decision from earlier. No. Elena met his eyes. Just understanding what it means, what I signed up for. You can still change your mind. I could set you up somewhere safe, somewhere quiet. New identity, new life. Enough money to start over. His voice was carefully neutral, but Elena heard the tension underneath. You'd be free. Protected, but free. Is that what you want? What I want doesn't matter. What matters is giving you a choice that's actually a choice, not just choosing between bad options. Elena set down her glass and crossed to him, ignoring the protest from her shoulder. I already made my choice. I chose you. I chose this life. Stop trying to give me exits. Victor's hand came up to touch her face, his thumb tracing the curve of her jaw. You're impossibly stubborn. You know that? I learned from the best. My grandmother survived impossible odds by being stubborn. Seems like it runs in the family. Catherine was brave, strategic. She knew when to run and when to stand her ground. Victor's eyes searched hers. But she was also alone. Always alone, even when she was married to your grandfather. She couldn't tell anyone the truth about her past, couldn't share the burden. That's what killed her in the end, I think. Not danger, but loneliness. I won't be alone. Elena's good hand covered his where it rested against her cheek. I'll have you. And you'll have me. That's better than my grandmother had. Victor pulled her close, careful of her injury, and kissed her forehead. You should rest. It's been a long day, and that shoulder needs time to heal. I'm not tired. You're exhausted. I can see it in your eyes. Victor guided her toward the bedroom, one arm supporting her. Come on, doctor's orders. The bedroom was stunning. King-size bed with crisp white linens, more floor-to-ceiling windows showing the ocean, furniture that probably cost more than Elena's car. Victor helped her sit on the edge of the bed, then knelt to remove her shoes with surprising gentleness. "I can do that myself," Elena protested. "I know. Let me anyway." He set her shoes aside and stood. "There's pain medication in the bathroom if you need it, and I'll be right outside if you need anything else." "Outside? You're not staying?" Victor's expression was carefully controlled. "You're injured. You need rest, not—" He broke off, seeming to struggle with words. "It's better if I give you space tonight." Elena understood what he wasn't saying. The kiss earlier had changed things between them, but Victor was trying to be honorable, trying not to take advantage while Elena was vulnerable and in pain. It should have been sweet. It was sweet. But Elena was also tired of everyone making decisions about what was best for her. "Victor." She waited until he looked at her. "Stay, please. I don't want to be alone tonight." He studied her face, clearly warring with himself. Finally, he nodded. "I'll stay. But I'm sleeping on the couch in the corner. You take the bed." "That's ridiculous. The bed is huge. We can share it like adults." "Elena, I'm not asking you to do anything except sleep in the same room as me. Is that really so complicated?" Victor's mouth twitched, almost a smile. "With you?" "Yes. Everything's complicated with you." But he stayed. Changed in the bathroom while Elena carefully got herself ready for bed with one functional arm. When he emerged in sleep pants and a t-shirt, looking more human and less like a crime boss, Elena was already under the covers on the right side of the bed. Victor hesitated, then slid under the covers on the left side, maintaining a careful distance between them. They lay in the darkness, listening to the sound of waves outside and the quiet footsteps of security guards making rounds. "Tell me something about your life before all this," Elena said quietly. "Something normal." "I don't really do normal." "Try." Victor was quiet for so long, Elena thought he wasn't going to answer. Then his voice came through the darkness, softer than she'd ever heard it. "When I was a kid, maybe 8 or 9, my father took me fishing, just the two of us, no guards, no business associates. We went out on a boat before sunrise and didn't come back until dark." He paused. "I caught a marlin. Took me 2 hours to reel it in. My arms were shaking. I was exhausted, ready to give up. But my father kept telling me to hold on, keep fighting, that nothing worth having comes easy." "Did you keep the fish?" "No, we threw it back. My father said some things are valuable because you let them go, not because you keep them." Another pause. "I think about that sometimes. Wonder if he was trying to teach me something bigger than fishing." Elena reached across the space between them, found his hand in the darkness, and laced their fingers together. "He was teaching you that strength isn't just about holding on. Sometimes it's about knowing when to release." Victor's thumb stroked across her knuckles. "Is that what you think I should do with you? Let you go?" "No, I think you should recognize that I'm choosing to stay. That's different than you holding on against my will." They fell into silence again, but it was comfortable now, connected. Elena felt herself drifting toward sleep, safe despite everything that had happened, safe because of the man lying next to her. "Elena?" Victor's voice was barely a whisper. "Hmm? I'm glad you're stubborn. Glad you didn't let me push you away." Elena smiled in the darkness. "Me too." She fell asleep holding his hand, and for the first time since this nightmare began, she didn't dream of running or danger or secrets. She just slept, deep and dreamless, while Victor kept watch over her through the night. Morning came with sunlight streaming through the windows and the smell of coffee drifting up from downstairs. Elena woke slowly, disoriented for a moment, then remembered where she was. Victor's side of the bed was empty but still warm. He hadn't been gone long. She found him on the terrace, phone in one hand and coffee in the other, looking out at the ocean while he talked. "I don't care what the FBI wants. They don't get to question her without her lawyer present, and Sarah's not available until tomorrow afternoon." A pause. "No, that's final. If they want to push it, they can get a warrant, and we'll tie it up in court for 6 months." He ended the call and turned to find Elena watching him through the glass door. "Coffee?" he offered, gesturing to the pot on the outdoor table. Elena poured herself a cup and sat in one of the comfortable chairs. Her shoulder felt better this morning, stiff but manageable. Let me guess. The federal agents want to talk to me about last night? Among other things, they're very interested in why Sophia Ricci broke into your safe house and tried to kidnap you. Victor sat across from her. Which means they've connected Sophia to Giuseppe and Giuseppe to my father, and now they're trying to figure out how you fit into a 30-year-old criminal conspiracy. Great. So I'm still a suspect. You're a person of interest. There's a difference. Victor's voice was dry. Sarah's working on a statement. Basic facts, nothing incriminating. You were targeted because of your grandmother's past relationship with my father. You accepted my protection after several threats against your safety. Everything else is speculation and hearsay. Elena sipped her coffee, watching a sailboat move across the distant horizon. What about Sophia? Is she talking? Not yet. She's still sedated from surgery, but when she wakes up, she'll have choices to make. Cooperate with the FBI in exchange for a lighter sentence, or stay silent and face the full weight of attempted kidnapping charges. Victor's expression was grim. Either way, she's going to be asked questions about me, about my organization, about what she was really after. The evidence, Catherine's documents, which we now have secured in multiple locations, both physical and digital. Even if Sophia had succeeded last night, she wouldn't have found everything. Victor set down his coffee cup. But she damaged something more important than documents. She exposed weaknesses in my security, proved that someone inside my organization is feeding information to my enemies. Do you have any idea who? Several ideas? I'm working through them systematically. His tone suggested that whoever the traitor was, their days were numbered. But that's my problem to solve. What I need from you is cooperation with the federal investigation. Answer their questions through your lawyer, stick to the agreed-upon statement, don't volunteer additional information. In other words, lie convincingly. In other words, tell carefully curated truths that don't incriminate anyone. Victor met her eyes. Welcome to my world. Nothing is ever completely honest, but nothing is completely false either. We live in the gray areas. Elena thought about her grandmother, who'd spent 30 years living in those same gray areas, keeping secrets, telling half-truths, protecting herself and her family through careful deception. It was exhausting just thinking about it. How long do I have to do this? She asked. How long before the federal investigation closes and I can stop looking over my shoulder? Honestly, could be weeks, could be months. The FBI is persistent when they think they're on to something. Victor stood, pacing to the terrace railing. But I'm working on accelerating the timeline. I have people in the prosecutor's office, people who can steer the investigation away from you and towards Sophia's independent actions. Make it look like she was a lone actor with a grudge, not part of some larger conspiracy. More carefully curated truths. Exactly. Victor turned back to face her. I know this isn't the life you imagined for yourself, and I know you're struggling with the morality of it all, but this is how we survive, Elena. We adapt the truth to protect ourselves and the people we care about. That's not evil. It's just practical. Elena wanted to argue with his logic, but she couldn't, because he was right. In this world Victor inhabited, pure honesty was a luxury no one could afford. The people who tried to be completely truthful ended up dead or in prison. What about my mother? Elena asked, changing the subject. Can I see her today? Already arranged, we'll go this afternoon. I had her moved to a facility in Fort Lauderdale, farther away, but better security and no connection to any of my known properties. Victor checked his watch. We have time before then. I thought you might want to finish going through Catherine's things. There are still a few boxes we haven't examined. You think there's more to find? I think your grandmother was too smart to put all her insurance in one place. The journal and documents we found were important, but they might not be everything. His eyes were sharp, calculating, and I want to find it all before anyone else does. They spent the rest of the morning back at the storage facility, this time with double the security. Marcus had been given extra men, and the entire building was being monitored by Victor's tech team. No one was getting in without authorization. The remaining boxes held mostly personal items, photograph albums, old correspondence, a collection of recipes written in Catherine's elegant handwriting. Elena found herself getting emotional looking through her grandmother's life. seeing the careful way she'd documented her new existence while burying all traces of the old one. Then, in the very last box, wrapped in layers of plastic and hidden inside a hollowed-out cookbook, Elena found a key. Small, brass, with a number stamped on it, 447. Victor. She held up the key. Safety deposit box? He took it carefully, examining the number. Probably, but where? There's no bank name, no identifying information. Maybe in the cookbook? Elena flipped through the pages, looking for notes or marks. Nothing obvious jumped out. But then she noticed something. Certain recipes had small pencil marks next to them, just tiny dots that could have been accidents or stains. She showed Victor. Look, this recipe for pasta carbonara has a mark. So does this one for tiramisu, and this one for... She stopped, her heart racing. They're all Italian recipes, and they're all marked. Victor caught on immediately. She was leaving clues, pointing to something Italian. Or somewhere Italian. Elena's mind was racing. What Italian banks operate in Miami? Victor pulled out his phone, searching quickly. Banca di Roma has a branch in downtown Miami. So does UniCredit. But both of those are major international banks. Catherine wouldn't have chosen somewhere that obvious. Elena kept flipping through the cookbook, looking for more clues. On the inside back cover, almost invisible unless you were looking for it, she found an address written in pencil, 2847 Coral Way. That's Little Havana, Victor said, recognizing the street. Not exactly known for Italian banks. But it's something. We should check it out. We will. After we see your mother. Victor pocketed the key and helped Elena pack up the remaining items. This can wait a few hours. Your mother can't. The drive to Fort Lauderdale took 45 minutes through midday traffic. Elena watched Miami blur past the tinted windows, thinking about the key and what it might unlock. More secrets, more evidence, more pieces of her grandmother's hidden life. The new facility was even nicer than the previous one, set on beautifully landscaped grounds with water views and the kind of architecture that screamed expensive. Elena's mother was in a suite on the third floor, sitting in a wheelchair by the window when they arrived. Elena, they said you were coming, but I didn't believe... Linda's eyes went to Victor and her smile widened. And you brought your handsome friend again. This must be serious. Elena kissed her mother's cheek, careful not to jostle her. How are you feeling, Mama? Do you like the new place? Like it? It's incredible. The physical therapist is amazing. The food is actual food instead of hospital mystery meat. And look, she gestured to the window. I can see the ocean from my room. It's like a vacation resort. Her expression sobered slightly. But it must be costing a fortune, baby. I don't know how you're managing all this. I told you I got a better job. They have good benefits. The lie came easily now, smoothly, exactly as Victor had taught her. And they're connected to this facility, so you get priority care. It's all arranged. Linda looked skeptical but didn't push. Instead, she turned her attention to Victor, who'd been standing quietly near the door. Mr. Morelli, isn't it? Elena mentioned you're helping with her work situation. Victor, please. He crossed to shake her hand gently. And yes, I'm glad I could help. Your daughter is very talented. It would have been a waste for her to stay in restaurant work. What exactly does she do for you now? Elena felt her stomach drop, but Victor didn't miss a beat. Research and documentation. I have several business interests that require someone with attention to detail and discretion. Elena has both. Sounds mysterious, and Linda's eyes sparkled. Should I be worried my daughter's gotten involved with something dangerous? Only dangerously boring, Victor said with a slight smile. Lots of paperwork and filing. Nothing exciting, I promise. Linda laughed, and Elena felt some of the tension ease. Her mother believed Victor, or at least wanted to believe him. Either way, she wasn't asking uncomfortable questions. They stayed for an hour talking about Linda's physical therapy progress and the friends she'd made among other patients. Elena watched her mother come alive in a way she hadn't seen in months, energized by hope and actual improvements in her condition. As they were leaving, Linda caught Elena's hand. He seems like a good man, your Victor. Protective, kind. Maybe a little dangerous around the edges, but that's not always a bad thing. She squeezed Elena's fingers. I'm glad you have someone looking out for you, baby, especially now, with everything changing so fast. Elena felt tears prick her eyes.
I love you, Mama. I love you too. Now go. Let me rest so I can impress my physical therapist tomorrow. In the car, Elena was quiet for several miles. Finally, Victor spoke. Your mother's perceptive. She always has been. I'm surprised she bought the corporate job story. She didn't buy it. She accepted it because it was the story you needed her to believe. Victor glanced at her. That's different. She knows something's going on. She's choosing to trust that you'll tell her the truth when it's safe to do so. Elena thought about that, about her mother's quiet strength, her willingness to accept comfortable lies rather than demanding dangerous truths. Maybe that was where Elena got her own stubborn courage, not from her grandmother's dramatic escape, but from her mother's quiet endurance. Now, Victor said, pulling out his phone to check the address again. Let's see what's at 2847 Coral Way. Quote. The address turned out to be a small professional building, the kind that housed dentists and accountants and other unglamorous businesses. On the third floor, they found a discreet office with a brass plaque reading Mercado Fiduciario, Private Banking Services. Inside, an elderly man with silver hair and impeccable suit greeted them in accented English. Good afternoon. How may I help you? Victor showed him the key. We believe this belongs to a safety deposit box held by Catherine DeLuca, also known as Catherine Morelli. The man's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Recognition, maybe, or wariness. I'm sorry, but I cannot confirm or deny the existence of any accounts without proper identification and authorization. His voice was carefully neutral. Do you have documentation proving you're entitled to access Mrs. DeLuca's property? Elena stepped forward. I'm her granddaughter. She passed away 8 years ago.
I can provide death certificates, proof of relation, whatever you need. And this gentleman? The banker's eyes moved to Victor. A friend helping me settle my grandmother's affairs. The banker studied them both for a long moment. Then he gestured to chairs in front of his desk. Please sit. Let me review our records. He disappeared into a back room, leaving Elena and Victor alone in the quietly elegant office. This is it, Elena whispered. Whatever my grandmother was hiding, it's here. Maybe. Victor's voice was cautious. Don't get your hopes up until we know for sure. The banker returned carrying a thick file folder. Mrs. Catherine DeLuca did indeed maintain a safety deposit box with this institution, opened in September 1994, with annual fees paid through a trust that continues to this day. He opened the folder, showing them documents. However, there are specific instructions regarding access. The box may only be opened by Mrs. DeLuca's direct descendants and only after verification of identity and lineage. I can provide that, Elena said. Birth certificates? My mother's birth certificate showing Catherine as her mother? Whatever you need. There's one more requirement. The banker turned a page showing them Catherine's original paperwork. The person requesting access must correctly answer a security question that only a true family member would know. Elena's heart sank. A security question from her grandmother, asked 30 years ago? How could she possibly know the answer? What's the question? Victor asked. The banker read from the document. What song did Catherine sing to her daughter on the night she was born? Elena's breath caught. Her grandmother had sung to her mother? Linda had never mentioned that. How could Elena possibly know? Wait, there was a lullaby her mother used to sing to Elena when she was small. A soft Italian melody with words Elena had never understood. She'd asked about it once, and her mother had said it was something her own mother used to sing. Was it Ninna Nanna? Elena's voice was barely a whisper. The Italian lullaby. The banker's expression softened into a genuine smile. Actually, the answer recorded is more specific, Stella Stellina, but that's close enough to demonstrate authentic knowledge. He stood, gathering keys. If you'll follow me, I'll take you to the vault. The safety deposit box was larger than Elena expected, more like a small trunk than a box. The banker left them alone in a private viewing room, and Elena's hands shook slightly as she lifted the lid. Inside were more documents, different than the ones they'd found in storage. These were newer, more recently created. Bank statements from the past decade, property deeds, stock certificates, a letter addressed to my granddaughter, if you're reading this. Elena picked up the letter with trembling hands. Her grandmother's handwriting, still elegant even in her final years. "Read it," Victor said quietly. "I'll look through the financial documents." Elena unfolded the letter and began to read. The letter was dated 6 months before her grandmother's death. Catherine had known, somehow, that she didn't have much time left. The words were both a confession and an explanation, written with the clarity of someone who'd been carrying secrets for too long. Catherine wrote about her time with Antonio Morelli, about the fear and love that had existed in equal measure. She wrote about Giuseppe Ricci's betrayal and the impossible position she'd been put in. She explained her escape, her reasoning, her decades of looking over her shoulder. But then the letter took an unexpected turn. Catherine revealed that she hadn't just taken evidence to protect herself. She'd also taken money. Lots of money. Skimmed from Antonio's accounts over those 8 months, hidden in offshore holdings, invested carefully over the decades. The safety deposit box contained documentation of those investments. Stocks, bonds, real estate holdings across the country. 30 years of compound interest on stolen money had turned it into a small fortune. And Catherine was leaving it all to Elena. "Oh my God," Elena whispered, looking up at Victor. "She left me money, millions of dollars." Victor had been reading the stock certificates, and his expression was complicated. "She was smart about it. Diversified holdings, legitimate investments, nothing that could be traced back to my father's organization. As far as anyone can prove, this is just a savvy investor's portfolio. But it's stolen money, built on money that was already stolen, laundered through legitimate businesses, and then reinvested legally." Victor set down the documents he'd been examining. "Your grandmother turned dirty money clean over 30 years. At this point, it's as legitimate as any inherited wealth." Elena couldn't process it. Her grandmother, who'd lived so modestly, who'd scraped by on a teacher's pension, who'd left Elena nothing but a bottle of perfume and some photograph albums, that grandmother had secretly been wealthy, had built a fortune from the ashes of her escape. "Why didn't she use it?" Elena asked. "Why live so carefully when she had all this?" "Because using it would have drawn attention, would have made people ask questions about where the money came from." Victor's voice was understanding. "She was protecting you and your mother, making sure that when the truth finally came out, you'd be taken care of, that you'd have resources to fight back if you needed to." Elena looked at the documents spread across the table. Stock certificates, property deeds, bank statements. Her grandmother's final gift, bought with stolen money and careful planning and 30 years of patience. "What do I do with it?" she asked quietly. "Whatever you want. It's yours, legally, cleanly yours." Victor paused. "You could walk away from all of this, use the money to start over somewhere new, take care of your mother, live quietly, never look back." Elena heard the unspoken question in his words. Was this her exit? Her chance to take the gift her grandmother had left and escape the dangerous world Elena had chosen to enter? She thought about it seriously for the first time since kissing Victor the night before. With this money, she really could leave. Could set up her mother in the best long-term care facility, could create a new life somewhere safe, could honor her grandmother's legacy by choosing peace over danger. But she thought about Victor standing in that empty restaurant, recognizing her grandmother's perfume, about the way he'd protected her through every threat, about the kiss and the promise and the connection that had formed between them despite all logic, about the fact that she didn't want to run anymore. "No," Elena said firmly. "I'm not using this to escape. I'm using it to build something better." She met Victor's eyes. "My grandmother took this money and hid it. I'm going to take it and do something good with it, something that helps people instead of hurting them." Victor's expression shifted, something like pride or approval or relief crossing his face. "What did you have in mind?" "I don't know yet. Maybe a foundation for medical care, like what you set up for my mother. Maybe something for people trying to escape dangerous situations. Maybe—" She stopped, an idea forming. "Maybe something that helps families like Giuseppe Ricci's. People who lost everything because of the violence in this world. Give them resources to rebuild, to find legitimate paths forward." Victor seemed genuinely surprised. "That's actually brilliant. Turn the profits of crime into redemption for its victims." Is it naive? It's idealistic, but idealism isn't the same as naivety. Victor gathered the documents carefully. We'll need lawyers, accountants, people who can structure this properly. Make sure every dollar is accounted for, every investment above board. It'll take time. I have time. Elena stood feeling lighter than she had in days. And I have you to help me, right? Right. Victor's hand found hers, their fingers lacing together naturally. Partners, in this and everything else. They left the bank with Catherine's documents secured in Victor's briefcase, and Elena felt like she was finally understanding her grandmother's legacy. It wasn't just the money, or the secrets, or the escape. It was the resilience, the ability to take something terrible and transform it into something meaningful. Catherine had done it 30 years ago. Now Elena would do it in her own way. As they drove back toward Key Biscayne, Elena's phone rang. Sarah Mitchell, her lawyer. Elena, we need to talk. The FBI just offered you immunity in exchange for testimony against Victor Morelli. Elena's blood went cold. She looked at Victor, who was focused on the road but must have heard every word through the car's speakers. Testimony about what? Elena asked carefully. Everything. Your grandmother's relationship with Antonio Morelli, the documents you've recovered, Victor's current involvement in your life. They're building a RICO case, and they think you're the key to making it stick. Sarah's voice was professional but concerned. They're giving you 24 hours to decide, testify and walk away clean, or refuse and face potential charges as an accessory. The world seemed to tilt sideways. Everything they'd built, everything they'd promised each other, suddenly balanced on a knife's edge. Elena looked at Victor, whose hands had tightened on the steering wheel. His expression was carefully neutral, but she could see the tension in his jaw. This was it, the real test. Not danger or attacks or complicated feelings, but a simple choice: betray Victor and save herself, or stay loyal and face the consequences. Tell them I decline, Elena said clearly. I'm not testifying against anyone. Elena, think about this. They're offering you complete immunity, clean slate. You'd be protected from any future prosecution related to, I said no. Elena's voice was firm. I'm not helping them build a case against Victor. That's final. She ended the call and met Victor's eyes. His expression had shifted, something raw and grateful breaking through his usual control. You just turned down immunity, he said quietly. Do you understand what that means? It means I chose you. Like I've been choosing you since the moment I decided to trust you. Elena reached for his hand. We're in this together now, for better or worse. Victor pulled the car over to the side of the road, put it in park, and kissed her. It was different than the kiss the night before, deeper, more certain, carrying the weight of her choice and his gratitude and the future they were building together. When they finally broke apart, Victor rested his forehead against hers. I'm going to protect you from this, from the FBI, from the charges, from everything. I promise. I know, and I'm going to stand beside you while you do it. Elena smiled. That's what partners do, right? Right. Victor kissed her once more softly. Let's go home. We have a lot of work to do. As they drove toward Key Biscayne, Elena felt the pieces of her new life finally clicking into place. She'd chosen Victor over safety, chosen transformation over escape, chosen to honor her grandmother's legacy, not by running from the past, but by building something better from its ruins. The federal investigation would continue. Threats would emerge. Challenges would come. But Elena wasn't afraid anymore. Because she'd finally stopped being a victim of her circumstances and become the architect of her own future. And that future, dangerous and complicated as it was, included the man sitting beside her. The man who'd recognized her grandmother's perfume and changed everything. The man who'd offered her protection and gotten her heart in return. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The next 3 weeks unfolded like a carefully choreographed dance between truth and deception, loyalty and law, danger and the unexpected sanctuary Elena found in Victor's world. Sarah Mitchell worked tirelessly to keep the federal investigation at bay, filing motion after motion to delay Elena's required testimony, arguing procedural technicalities that bought them precious time. Meanwhile, Victor's people were conducting their own investigation. The leak in his organization had been found. A mid-level security coordinator who'd been feeding information to Sofia Ricci for almost 6 months, motivated by gambling debts and misplaced loyalty to Giuseppe's memory. The man had disappeared quietly one night, and no one asked questions about his fate. Elena tried not to think about what that disappearance meant. She spent her days working with lawyers and accountants to structure her grandmother's inheritance into something legitimate and meaningful. The foundation was taking shape, designed to provide resources for families affected by organized crime, medical care, legal assistance, relocation services. It was ambitious, complicated, and exactly the kind of redemption Elena needed. Her nights belonged to Victor. They'd moved past careful distance into something deeper, more honest. He still kept parts of his world hidden from her, still made decisions he wouldn't explain, but Elena was learning to accept the boundaries he needed to maintain. And in the quiet moments between crises, she discovered a man who was more than just power and danger. Someone who read philosophy before bed, who remembered how she took her coffee, who watched her with an intensity that made her feel both exposed and cherished. But the federal pressure was building. Elena knew it couldn't last forever. The breaking point came on a Tuesday morning when Sarah called with news that made Elena's stomach drop. "They're issuing a grand jury subpoena. You'll have to testify next week, and this time there's no legal way to delay it." Sarah's voice was grave. "Elena, if you refuse to answer their questions, you'll be held in contempt. That means jail time until you comply. And if you lie under oath, that's perjury, which carries its own criminal penalties." Elena was sitting in the sunroom of the Key Biscayne house, morning light streaming through the windows, a cup of coffee growing cold in her hands. Victor was in Miami handling business, and for the first time in weeks, Elena felt truly alone with the weight of her choices. "What are my options?" she asked quietly. "Legally? You testify truthfully, you invoke the Fifth Amendment and refuse to answer on grounds of self-incrimination. Or you accept the immunity deal and cooperate fully." Sarah paused. "Realistically? None of those options end well for you or for Victor. Then we need a fourth option." "There isn't one, Elena. Not legally." After the call ended, Elena sat staring at the ocean, thinking about her grandmother. Catherine had faced an impossible choice 30 years ago and had found a way to survive it. Not by choosing between two bad options, but by creating a third path no one had anticipated. Elena needed to do the same thing now. She called Victor. He answered on the first ring, his voice sharp with concern. "What's wrong?" "We need to talk, in person. It's important." "I'll be there in 20 minutes. He made it in 15, striding into the house with Marcus close behind. One look at Elena's face and he dismissed Marcus with a gesture, pulling Elena into his arms. "Tell me," he said simply. Elena explained the subpoena, the timeline, the impossible choice she was facing. Victor listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker with each detail. "I won't let you go to jail," he said when she finished. "We'll find another way." "What other way? We've exhausted every legal delay, every procedural trick. The federal government wants my testimony, and they're not going to stop until they get it." Elena pulled back to look at him. "Unless we give them something else, something bigger." Victor's eyes narrowed. "What do you mean?" "Sofia Ricci is still in custody, facing attempted kidnapping charges. She hasn't cooperated with the FBI because she's been holding out hope that she can still get what she wants. Revenge against you, vindication for her father." Elena's mind was racing, pieces falling into place. But what if we offered her a different kind of vindication? What if we gave her the truth about her father? "The truth that my father killed him? That helps us how?" "Not that truth. The other truth." Elena grabbed her laptop, pulling up the research she'd been doing late at night when sleep wouldn't come. "Giuseppe Ricci wasn't just an informant. He was embezzling from your father's organization, funneling money to himself through the same offshore accounts he was documenting for the FBI. He was playing both sides, trying to get rich and take down your father at the same time." Victor went very still. "How do you know this?" "Your grandmother's documents. I've been going through them more carefully,
comparing the financial records to Giuseppe's known movements. The discrepancies are there if you know what to look for. Elena showed him the spreadsheet she'd created, highlighting the patterns. Giuseppe wasn't a hero trying to take down criminals. He was a criminal trying to eliminate his competition and get away with stolen money. And you think Sofia doesn't know this? I think she spent 30 years believing her father was a martyr, that he died trying to do the right thing. Elena closed the laptop.
If we show her the truth, that her father was just as corrupt as anyone else in that world, it might break her crusade. Make her realize that revenge isn't justice, it's just more violence. Victor studied her for a long moment. That's incredibly risky. If Sofia doesn't believe us, or if she doubles down on her vendetta, we've shown her evidence that could make the FBI's case even stronger. But if it works, she might agree to testify that she acted alone, that her vendetta against you was personal, not based on any actual criminal activity on your part. She clears you, and in exchange, we give her the truth about her father. Let her decide what to do with it. The FBI won't like that. They want you testifying against me, not Sofia exonerating me. Which is exactly why it might work. Elena took his hands. They're so focused on building their case against you that they're not seeing the actual crimes right in front of them. Sofia's attack, the assault on your security guard, the break-in at my apartment, those are all provable crimes with clear evidence. If she confesses to those and explains her motivation, the FBI gets convictions and closure. They might be willing to let the larger investigation go if they have something concrete to show for their efforts. Victor was quiet, thinking it through. Elena could see the calculation in his eyes, weighing risks and rewards, looking for the angles she might have missed. It could work, he said finally, but we'd need leverage to make sure Sofia cooperates. And we'd need Sarah to negotiate the deal carefully. Make sure the FBI doesn't try to turn Sofia's confession into evidence against me. Sarah's the best. She can handle it. Elena squeezed his hands. This is our fourth option, Victor, the one nobody's expecting. We give the FBI what they think they want while actually protecting what matters. Victor pulled her close, kissing her forehead. You're starting to think like someone who belongs in this world. I'm not sure if I should be proud or worried. Be both. That's what I am. They spent the rest of the day coordinating with Sarah, building the framework of their proposal. The evidence of Giuseppe's embezzlement was solid enough to be credible, and Sarah agreed that approaching Sofia with it could shift the dynamic dramatically. The question was whether Sofia would accept the truth or reject it as more lies from the Morelli family. She's been in custody for 3 weeks, Sarah said during their conference call. Facing serious charges, looking at years in prison. She has to be questioning whether her vendetta was worth it. If we time this right, catch her in a moment of doubt, she might be ready to hear uncomfortable truths about her father. When can you arrange a meeting? Victor asked. I'll reach out to her attorney today. Frame it as a settlement discussion, an opportunity to reduce her charges in exchange for cooperation. That's standard enough not to raise suspicions. Sarah's voice turned cautious. But Victor, if this goes wrong, if Sofia uses this information against you somehow, the consequences could be severe. I know, but Elena's right. We need a solution that doesn't involve her going to jail or testifying against me. This is our best shot. The meeting was arranged for Friday afternoon at the county detention center where Sofia was being held. Sarah would attend as Elena's attorney, and Victor would be there as a victim of Sofia's crimes, which gave him standing to participate in plea negotiations. Elena had fought to be included, but Victor had been immovable on that point. You're the one the FBI wants. If you're in that room, it complicates everything, he'd said. Let me handle this. Trust me. So Elena waited at the Key Biscayne house, pacing the sunroom, watching the clock crawl toward the meeting time. Marcus had been assigned to stay with her, a silent presence who tried to project calm while Elena's anxiety spiraled. Her phone rang at exactly 3:15. Victor's voice was tight but controlled. We're in. Sofia agreed to hear what we have to say. I'll call you when we're done. The next 2 hours were torture. Elena tried to distract herself with work on the foundation, or with calls to check on her mother, with anything that would keep her mind occupied. Nothing worked. She kept imagining scenarios where Sofia rejected their evidence, where the FBI found some way to use the meeting against them, where Victor ended up in more danger instead of less. When her phone finally rang again, Elena nearly dropped it in her haste to answer. It worked. Victor's voice carried relief and something that might have been surprise. Sophia broke down when we showed her the evidence. Apparently, Giuseppe told her he was working with the FBI to protect their family, to build a case that would bring down the Morelli organization and keep them safe. She had no idea he was stealing money, that he was playing both sides. So she believed you. She believed the documentation. Bank records don't lie, and her father's accounts told a story she couldn't deny. Victor paused. She agreed to testify that her actions were motivated by personal vendetta based on false assumptions about her father's death. She'll plead guilty to the assault and kidnapping charges, accept a reduced sentence of 5 years, and make it clear that I was a victim of her campaign, not a participant in any criminal enterprise. Elena's legs went weak with relief. And the FBI accepted that? They're not happy about it, but Sarah convinced them that Sophia's confession closes multiple investigations and gives them solid convictions. Better than chasing a RICO case that might not go anywhere. His voice softened. You're off the hook, Elena. No grand jury testimony, no contempt charges, no impossible choices. It's over. Elena sank into a chair, tears streaming down her face. It's really over? The federal investigation into you? Yes. There are still some loose ends to tie up, and the FBI will probably keep an eye on me for the foreseeable future, but you're clear, completely clear. When will you be home? I'm leaving now. Sarah's handling the final paperwork. I'll be there in 30 minutes. Elena spent those 30 minutes crying with relief, calling her mother to share the good news without sharing any of the terrifying details, and trying to process the fact that the nightmare that had consumed her life for the past month was actually ending. When Victor arrived, she threw herself into his arms, holding him so tightly he laughed. I told you I'd protect you, he said into her hair. I keep my promises. I never doubted it. Elena pulled back to look at him. What happens to Sophia now? She'll serve her time. Maybe find some peace knowing the truth about her father, or maybe spend 5 years getting angrier. Either way, she's not our problem anymore. Victor cupped Elena's face in his hands. What happens now is we build the life we've been talking about. The foundation, the future, all of it. No more looking over our shoulders, no more waiting for the other shoe to drop. Can it really be that simple? Nothing's ever simple, but it can be better than it was. He kissed her softly. We've earned that much. That night they celebrated with a quiet dinner on the terrace, watching the sun set over the Atlantic. Elena felt lighter than she had in weeks, the constant tension finally releasing from her shoulders. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new complications, but tonight she could just breathe. I've been thinking about the foundation, Victor said over dessert, about the mission, the scope, how to make it actually effective instead of just symbolic. And I want to contribute, not just advice and connections, but money, real money, enough to make a genuine difference. He set down his wine glass, his expression serious. My father built an empire on other people's suffering. I've profited from that empire whether I wanted to or not. Maybe it's time to balance the scales a little. Use some of that profit to help people instead of hurt them. Elena reached for his hand. That would mean a lot. Not just the money, but what it represents. You choosing to be different than your father. I've always been different than my father. He ruled through fear and violence. I prefer strategy and leverage. Victor's smile was slight. But different doesn't mean better. Not automatically. I've done things I'm not proud of. Hurt people who probably didn't deserve it. Made choices that kept me up at night. We all have things we're not proud of. What matters is what we do next. Spoken like someone who's never had to order someone's death. Victor's voice was quiet. That security coordinator who leaked information to Sophia? I made that decision, Elena. I decided he was a threat, and I eliminated that threat. That's who I am. That's what I do. Elena had known, of course, had chosen not to think about it too closely, but hearing Victor say it out loud, claiming that darkness explicitly, made it impossible to ignore. I know who you are, she said carefully. I'm not naive about what your world requires, but I also know you're not just that. You're not just the violence and the hard choices, you're also the man who sat by my mother's hospital bed, who protected me when you didn't have to, who's trying to build something better even though it's harder than just maintaining the status quo. You see the best in me. I'm not sure it's deserved. Then deserve it. Keep making choices that honor the man you want to be, instead of just the man your father raised you to be. Elena squeezed his hand. That's all any of us can do. Keep trying to be better than we were yesterday. Victor was quiet for a long moment, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. My father used to say that love was a weakness in this business, that caring about someone gave enemies leverage, created vulnerabilities that could be exploited. Do you believe that? I used to. His eyes met hers. But then you walked into that restaurant and I realized there are worse things than vulnerability. Like living your whole life behind walls so high nobody can touch you. Like dying alone because you were too afraid to let anyone in. Elena's breath caught. Victor, I love you. The words came out firm, certain, like a decision he'd already made and was just now announcing. I love you, and I'm terrified of what that means, but I'm more terrified of pretending I don't. Of losing you because I was too much of a coward to say it out loud. Elena felt tears spill over. I love you too. I've been trying not to, trying to be smart and careful and logical about this, but I can't help it. I love you. Victor pulled her into his arms, and they held each other as the last light faded from the sky and stars began to appear over the ocean. It should have been impossible, a waitress and a crime boss thrown together by a dead woman's perfume and 30-year-old secrets. But somehow, impossibly, it worked. The next few months passed in a blur of activity. The foundation launched with significant funding from both Elena's inheritance and Victor's contribution. They hired staff, established programs, began actually helping families caught in the crossfire of organized crime. The irony wasn't lost on Elena, using money generated by crime to help crime's victims, but she chose to focus on the good they were doing rather than dwelling on the complicated origins. Her mother's health continued to improve. Linda graduated from a wheelchair to a walker, then from a walker to a cane. The physical therapy was paying off, and while she'd never fully recover from the stroke, she was regaining independence and hope. She'd stopped asking questions about how Elena could afford such excellent care, accepting the cover story about the corporate job and good benefits. Whether she actually believed it or just chose to trust Elena's judgment, it didn't matter. They were both finding peace in their own ways. The federal investigation officially closed 6 months after Sophia's confession. The FBI issued a statement about successfully prosecuting multiple crimes related to historical organized crime activities, claiming victory while quietly shelving their larger RICO case against Victor. Sarah called it a win, and Elena chose to believe her. Victor's legitimate businesses continued to grow, his criminal enterprises quietly receding as he shifted focus toward legal revenue streams. It was a slow transformation, one that would take years to complete fully, but Elena could see him changing. Choosing strategy over violence, negotiation over intimidation, building instead of just protecting what his father had created. They moved into a new house together, not the Key Biscayne property that held too many memories of danger, but a place they chose together in Coconut Grove. It had a garden where Elena planted roses, a home office where she managed the foundation's operations, and a sense of permanence that both thrilled and terrified her. Elena's mother visited on a Sunday afternoon in early spring, her mobility good enough now that she could walk through the garden with just her cane for support. She stood among the roses, breathing in their perfume, and turned to Elena with knowing eyes. Your grandmother would be proud of you, Linda said quietly. Taking what she left and turning it into something meaningful, that takes courage. You know, Elena's voice was barely a whisper. You've known all along what the money was, where it came from. I've suspected. Your grandmother was many things, but she was never lucky with money during her life. For her to suddenly have resources to leave you after she died? Linda touched one of the roses gently. I'm not stupid, baby. I just chose to trust that you'd handle it right, and you have. I'm sorry I lied to you about the job, about how I met Victor, about all of it. You protected me. The same way your grandmother protected me by never telling me about her past. Sometimes love means carrying secrets so the people you care about don't have to. Linda smiled. But I'm glad you found someone to share the burden with. Victor's a good man underneath all the complications, and he loves you. That's clear every time he looks at you. I love him too, even though it's messy and complicated and probably a terrible idea. The best love usually is. Linda squeezed Elena's hand. Your grandfather and I, we had a simple love, comfortable, safe, predictable. It was good. But what you and Victor have, that's the kind of love that changes you, that makes you grow into who you're meant to be instead of just who you are. Don't apologize for that. 6 months later, on a warm evening in October, Victor took Elena sailing. Just the two of them on his boat, cutting through dark water under a canopy of stars. They'd done this before. It was one of their favorite escapes from the pressures of daily life. But tonight felt different. Victor was quieter than usual, more thoughtful. What's on your mind? Elena asked, leaning against his shoulder as he steered. The future. What it looks like. What I want it to be. Victor adjusted their course, heading farther from shore. I've spent my whole life reacting to circumstances, building on what my father created, responding to threats, making defensive moves. But lately I've been thinking about what I actually want. Not what I have to do, but what I choose to do. And what do you choose? Victor cut the engine, letting them drift on the gentle swells. He turned to face Elena fully, taking both her hands in his. I choose you. I choose the life we're building together. I choose to keep becoming the man you make me want to be. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. I choose forever, if you'll have me. Elena's breath caught as he opened the box, revealing a ring that caught the starlight. Not ostentatious or overly large, but perfect. A deep blue sapphire surrounded by small diamonds, elegant and timeless. It was my mother's, Victor said quietly. The only thing I kept from her after she died. I've been carrying it around for 3 weeks, trying to find the perfect moment, the perfect words. But I realized there aren't perfect moments. There's just us, choosing each other, choosing this life. So I'm asking, Elena Cross, will you marry me? Elena was crying, barely able to see the ring through her tears. Yes, of course, yes. Yes. Victor slid the ring onto her finger, then pulled her into his arms, kissing her with a mixture of relief and joy and promise. When they finally broke apart, Elena held up her hand, watching the sapphire catch the light. Why blue? She asked. Because it reminded me of the ocean, of freedom and depth and all the possibilities we haven't explored yet. Victor tucked a strand of her hair behind her ear. And because diamonds felt too expected. You've never been what I expected. Why should your ring be? They sailed back to shore hours later, plans already forming for a future Elena had never imagined possible a year ago. A wedding, probably small and private. Continuing expansion of the foundation. Maybe, eventually, a family of their own. The details could wait. What mattered was the commitment, the choice to build something together despite all the reasons it shouldn't work. The final piece fell into place 3 months before the wedding. Elena received a package with no return address, delivered by a courier who wouldn't say who'd sent it. Inside was a leather-bound book, her grandmother's original journal, the one they'd found in the storage unit. But this was different. This had additional pages, entries that had been carefully removed and hidden elsewhere. Elena read them alone in the home office, her heart pounding. These entries were from after Catherine's escape, written over the decades that followed. They documented her new life, her love for James Cross, the birth of her daughter, the quiet joy she'd found in normalcy. But they also documented her regrets, her fear that she'd been a coward, running instead of fighting, her guilt over the money she'd taken, even as she carefully invested it for her future grandchildren, her hope that someday someone in her family would be brave enough to do what she couldn't, make peace with the past and transform it into something better. The final entry was dated just weeks before Catherine's death. If you're reading this, my darling Elena, then you've found everything I left behind. The money, the secrets, the complicated truth about who I was before I became your grandmother. I hope you're not too disappointed in me. I hope you understand that I did the best I could with impossible choices. But more than that, I hope you're braver than I was. I hope you find a way to take all this darkness and create light. I hope you build something beautiful from the ruins I left you. And I hope you find someone worth building it with, Someone who sees your strength and doesn't try to dim it. Someone who makes you feel safe enough to be dangerous. That's the real gift I'm leaving you. Not money or secrets, but permission. Permission to be powerful. Permission to stop running. Permission to choose your own legacy instead of carrying mine. Be brave, my love. Be strong. Be the woman I wish I'd had the courage to be. All my love, always. Nona Catherine. Elena sat with the journal for a long time, tears streaming down her face, feeling her grandmother's presence in the room. Catherine had known, had planned all of this, not just the inheritance, but the journey Elena would take, had given her granddaughter the tools to succeed where she'd been too afraid to try. She found Victor in the garden, working on the roses Elena had planted. He took one look at her face and set down his tools. What happened? Elena showed him the journal, the hidden entries, her grandmother's final message. Victor read it carefully, his expression softening. She was right about you, he said when he finished. You are brave, braver than she gave herself credit for being. I had help, had you. Elena leaned into him. She said to find someone who makes me feel safe enough to be dangerous. That's you. You've never tried to protect me by making me weak. You've made me stronger by believing I could handle the truth. You can handle anything, Victor kissed her temple. You've already proven that. The wedding took place on a yacht at sunset, with only close family and friends present. Linda was there, stronger now, walking without her cane, tears streaming down her face as she watched her daughter marry a man who'd transformed from threat to family. Sarah Mitchell attended as both lawyer and friend, making dry jokes about the legal complications of their relationship that made everyone laugh. Marcus stood as Victor's best man, the quiet guardian who'd protected them both through everything. Elena wore a simple dress in cream silk, with her grandmother's perfume dabbed at her wrists. Victor wore a dark suit and his mother's sapphire ring on a chain around his neck, a mirror to the one on Elena's finger. When they exchanged vows, speaking promises of love and protection and partnership, Elena felt like she was finally closing the circle Catherine had started 30 years ago. I promise to be brave enough for both of us when you need me to be, Elena said, and to let you be strong for me when I can't be. I promise to keep transforming the past into a better future and to build a legacy we can both be proud of. I promise to protect you without diminishing you, Victor said, to love you without trying to change you, to keep becoming the man you see when you look at me, even when I can't see it myself. When they were pronounced married, when Victor kissed her as the sun sank into the ocean behind them, Elena thought about her grandmother, about the choices Catherine had made, the secrets she'd kept, the legacy she'd left behind, about the perfume that had started everything, the scent that had stopped Victor in his tracks and changed both their lives forever. Catherine had spent 30 years running from her past, but Elena had learned to stand still, to face the danger, to transform fear into strength. That was the real inheritance, not money or secrets, but the courage to stop running and start building. The reception continued into the night, laughter and music carrying across the water. Elena danced with her new husband under the stars, feeling the weight of her grandmother's ring on her finger, and the lightness of finally being free from the shadows of the past. What are you thinking about? Victor asked, holding her close as they swayed to soft music. About how a year ago, I was a waitress worried about tips and rent, and now I'm here, married to you, running a foundation, living a life I never imagined. Elena smiled. About how sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is wear the wrong perfume to work. Victor laughed, the sound genuine and warm. Best mistake you ever made. Not a mistake. Fate, maybe. Destiny. Whatever you want to call it, when two people find each other despite all the reasons they shouldn't. I call it luck, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret it. I won't. Elena kissed him softly. We're going to build something amazing together, something that honors my grandmother's courage and transforms your father's legacy, something that's completely ours. Together, Victor agreed. Always together. As the night deepened and the celebration continued around them, Elena realized this was the breakthrough her grandmother had been hoping for. Not escape, not vengeance, but transformation. Taking the pain and secrets and complicated history and choosing to create something better, something whole. The perfume that had exposed Catherine's past had become the catalyst for Elena's future. The legacy once hidden was now a foundation for change, and the love that had seemed impossible had become the bedrock of a life worth living. Elena Cross Morelli, no longer just a waitress, no longer just a victim of circumstances, no longer running from secrets or danger. Instead, she was exactly who her grandmother had hoped she'd become. Someone brave enough to face the past, strong enough to transform it, wise enough to build a future that honored both the darkness they'd survived and the light they'd chosen to create. The story that had begun with a scent and a stranger now ended with a promise and a partnership. Catherine's secrets were finally at rest, transformed from weapons into wisdom, from fear into freedom. And Elena, standing beside the man who'd recognized her grandmother's perfume and changed everything, knew that this was what redemption looked like. Not forgetting the past, but refusing to be defined by it. Not running from danger, but walking through it together. Not hiding from the truth, but using it to build something better. The legacy had been rewritten. The future was theirs to shape. And the perfume that had started it all now carried only the scent of roses and new beginnings, free from the ghosts that had haunted it for so long. This was how the story ended, not with an ending at all, but with a beginning, a choice, a transformation, a legacy finally made whole.